Welcome to the Grandstand Golf podcast. This is the biggest night of the year. The lights are on and the stars are out. This is the 2020 Grandies, presented by Grandstand Golf in proud partnership with To Be Determined. I'm Kevin Baptiste. I'm joined as always by my brothers Adam.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And Craig.
Hey guys, how we doing?
Guys, you are looking smashing tonight. I guess before we get too far, do you guys want to give any shout outs to tell the people who you're wearing tonight, or?
I don't like to do that personally, but if you are just listening to the podcast, it's also going on YouTube. I think we look pretty good if you want to get it on YouTube. I don't know, maybe throw it on the big screen. Have the whole family watch it. It's a big night.
Yeah, and I guess my response to that would be, I'll mention them if they want to pay me. Otherwise, I'll just go out there and wear what I'm wearing.
No freebies.
Well, listen, I got some people I got to thank for it. This doesn't just happen. I got to, first of all, thank my wife for this fantastic COVID haircut I'm rolling with here.
Oh.
And then I'd like to thank Adam for this, wedding suit that he organized for us there.
I was going to say, maybe the parents is actually who you would need to thank for that.
Anyway, still fits, so I'll take that as a win. All right, guys, it's an exciting...
Yeah, I was going to say, it still fits. It sounds like a bit of a low blow there to me and Adam.
Hey, I wasn't going to say anything, all right? So just before we get rolling too much, I wanted to point out that we're mainly focusing on the PGA Tour with our awards tonight, but we will have a dabbling of other tours. But, you know, as this our platform here grows and we're able to cover more different tours, we're going to definitely try to include them in future Grandies. So, no offense to any of the other tours out there. This is just this year inaugural Grandies. We're gonna let it fly on the PGA Tour.
It's how it's gonna be this year. And guys, tonight's gonna be a lot of fun. It may be a little bit longer than our typical show. We might go over that hour. We don't know yet, but we're gonna try to keep it short. Likely not as short as JT's stint at World Number 1 this year, but still short.
Oh,
hey, there we go.
Well, Adam, why don't you get us started off here? We got to get a good award out of the way early here. Get people excited.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're going to do a bunch of awards. Some are going to be good, a little bit of kind of fall on your face, worse. It's going to be good moments, bad moments, kind of everything in between. But we're starting with the shot of the year. Single, isolated shot, taking into account into the moment, the difficulty, everything like that. That shot that, if the grandstands are there, they would be roaring. The shot they'd be like, did that just happen? The shot that made you jump off your couch this year because, hey, we couldn't be there live in person. So the shot of the year, the single shot. What do you guys think? Couple honorable mentions. Craig, what do you think?
Okay, so honorable mentions, I think shots... We always have to look at hole-in-ones. So hole-in-ones we had in 2020. We look back at early in the year, before this whole COVID thing hit. Webb Simpson went out there on, I think it was on the Saturday of the Waste Management, while he's in contention, knocks it in the hole-in-one. I think he took the lead with it at that point, and if not, he might have tied for the lead or come very close, but went on to win the tournament by 1 over Finau. Big shot.
I mean, Waste Management, it wasn't like the 16th, 200,000 people or 100,000 people, but it's still, I mean, that's one of the best tournaments to get a hole-in-one at. Like, that would be crazy.
I think it might have been, I forget the number exactly. I think it might have been 12 there, but 16, That's a totally different hole-in-one there. It'd probably be a winner if it was.
Yeah.
We had Rahm in Mexico, WGC there. We had Corey Connors at the BMW Championship with a hole-in-one. But my favorite this year, Zalatoris, Will Zalatoris. I'd been hyping him up for a while. First time we got to see him on, with Big Boy League was U.S. Open. I think these were on Thursday. It was either Thursday or Friday. It was early rounds. Came out, made a hole-in-one, and hit a pin on another one for a hole-in-one that easily could have dropped. So for me, that was just like a take notice. Everyone was struggling that day, and he was just out there throwing darts. That to me, it's a good honorable mention.
I just looking at our notes here, I think we forgot one. Siwoo Kim at the Wyndham.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
So there's a few other hole-in-ones I didn't bring up, but I just touched on a few of the high points. I couldn't leave Connors out because our Canadian boy, but Siwoo Kim had a good one there.
Yeah, so I mean, the hole-in-ones are nice, but I think we also know that hole-in-ones, they happen with a little bit of luck sometimes. I mean, you get a guy like Siwoo Kim who almost does it twice in one round, or Zalatoris. That's pretty damn impressive. But
it sounds like someone who has never got a hole in one is.
Yeah, of course, of course. That's why it's all luck, all right. But someone I want to bring up, and this is largely due to the moment, is Colin Morikawa. His drive on 16 at the U.S. Open
on Sunday. On
right? Sunday. I mean, it won him the tournament, essentially. He ended up hitting his drive to, what was it, about 8 feet, 12 feet, something like that.
Yeah.
And then stepped up and made the eagle putt, and that fairly well clinched it for him. But to hit that shot in that moment from somebody who hasn't won their first major yet, that was an unbelievable shot. It did fit his eye, which was perfect. He has that baby cut T-ball that he actually played that same shot. I believe it was at Memorial or the Workday. I think it was the Workday. On a drivable par 4 that he landed in about an 8-yard gap there as well.
Well, and that one there was trouble around on.
Exactly. So he has that shot, but he played it to perfection in a moment when the pressure is at its absolute most intense.
Yeah.
So, that was, we're going to go through here and with our honorable mentions before we award the Grandie. But that one was, there was
I think that's the true honorable mention. I think that is the true.
I was going to say, I think
medal.
That was probably the runner-up, because I probably would have, pushed pretty hard for it to be the shot of the year.
Yeah,
there was definitely just some real chatter. Quick on that. It also, to me, highlights how awesome drivable par 4s can be when they're not just the longest guys on tour, where like maybe the longest guys are between driver and 3-wood. It just strategically, I think that makes for such an exciting hole.
I agree. So there was definitely some chatter that this one maybe should have won it, but that not all these are awarded by unanimous consent. I have to say, it goes to committee, and we don't always agree with all the results that the committee come forward with, but it is what it is. All right.
Let's just say the committee had a long night figuring out all these award winners, but I think we settled on a good selection of winners here. But a couple quick fires for shot of the year. Rahm's chip at Memorial on 16 on Sunday. He looked like he's kind of lucky to go up and down for par. Ended up chipping in. I think that is the one where he got the penalty, though. He kind of pressed it.
Probably because he improved his.
Still, the shot was great. Later in the year, Martin Laird got his bunker shot at the Shriners. He was plugged right into the wall on Sunday. Again, the announcers were saying he'll be lucky to get it out of the bunker, kind of splash it on the green, trickle into the hole. Beautiful shot. I
think that's another one that is a real contender and could be the shot of the year.
And not only that, don't forget that he had a shot on 17 on that same day on the par 3 on Sunday, where he was so far right, and he made an unbelievable shot to get it up and down.
Through and under the trees, right?
Going at the water. It was. He made some unbelievable shots that day.
And then quickly, big beauty, Harry Higgs at the Safeway with the Albatross. You don't get many Albatrosses, so you got to point that out. I think it was 9 or 18. I forget it. It was on Friday, I think. 2:30 out. Got the Albatross, threw out his hands. It was just a great shot. Great moment.
I was riding him in Showdown that day, so I was feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, guys. That's honorable mention. The award, the Grandie, goes to Jon Rahm and his putt at the playoff in the BMW Championship.
Well deserved, yeah.
For the win, yeah.
For the win, 66 downhole snaking putt. Second leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. He's with DJ. We're talking about the clash of the Titans here. Rahm, he has to play it out like 20 feet to the left for this putt. It's going to go down the hill, then a little bit left again at the hole. Flag stick is in. He hits the putt. He starts walking after it. He kind of stops at a moment. He's checking out if it where it's going to go when it goes past the hole. He stops. Then he raises his putter. It drops. It hits the middle of the flag stick, and he just gives a huge fist pump. It was, even when I look at the highlight now, kind of doing research for the show, it gave me the goosebump moment. Playoff putt, huge snaking putt, downhill, super, super hard. I think the announcers, they give that stat, percentage make was incredibly low. So the 2020 shot of the year, the Grandie goes to Jon Rahm.
Yeah, and we got to remember, too, the moment taken into consideration, we have Dustin Johnson, who just dropped a bomb to get into the playoff.
Yes, that's right.
to put the
one and
pressure
two,
on.
number 1 and 2 in the world in a playoff together. There's a lot of things about that moment that were special.
It was an awesome moment for sure.
It might be controversial, but hey, let us know in the comments on YouTube if you think maybe this isn't the right decision. I think this was kind of unanimous. The Morikawa one was close, but I don't know, that moment in the playoff is pretty special.
And I think this is where the backroom politicking happened a bit. I am going to continue to push next year for having a putt of the year and a shot of the year, because I think there's always going to be enough putts in big moments that could be a category unto itself, and then you get to reward the shots totally separately. But
fair.
I guess the Academy will consider that for the next round.
We can't give these things away too freely, otherwise people just won't value them like they really need to.
Exactly.
The Grandies is special. The Grandies
is going to go up on Rom's mantle there, and he's going to be proud of that for a long time, I'm sure. All right, that brings us to our second award of the night. This one is a less coveted prize. This is the Jean Vandeveld Award for kind of the biggest what just happened, what were they thinking moment of the year. A little bit self-explanatory. I don't think there could ever be a moment that quite lives up to Jean Vandeveld. I relived that recently on the Netflix special about I unfortunately I think it's called Losers. But it was a moment that I remember watching it happening when it first happened, and it was cringe-worthy, and you just could not believe the train wreck that was happening right in front of your eyes on the last hole of a major championship.
One of my earlier golf memories, actually.
Yeah. So there can be nothing that really lives up to that name. But with that said, Adam, will you get us started off?
Yeah, so not really collapses, but I'm going to focus on putts here. So putts that kind of just like scratching our head, like, how did that happen, or what really happened there? It's just like kind of surprised us. So PGA Championship, Ricky Fowler on Friday, he misses a putt, kind of just lips out. It's, I think, less than a foot, maybe 8-10 inches.
I think it was like 5 inches.
He walks over just to stab it, kind of push it in, and he hits the grass, flubs his putter, and then like just barely hits the ball, and it rolls maybe an inch or two. And then I think he took double bogey there after his flub of a tap-in. So that's not really collapse, but kind of a blooper there.
But he did go on to miss the cut by one.
That's the one where everyone in the group's just like, oh, like, is it good? Like, do we give it to him? Because you really missed that. And
I think the camera's got that one, Ricky. We're going to have to put you down for a 6 here, buddy. Next one, Morikawa, Carl Shaw playoff. I think it was our first event back from the COVID break. In the playoff, he has about 3 feet. He just kind of pounded it through, and it gave that huge power lip out. That Morikawa was trending in the right direction. Obviously went on to win the PGA Championship, but that's a putt you shouldn't miss, that 3-footer in the playoff. So that's up there. But I think, guys, the worst putting kind of ball in your face blooper moment of the year, it's got to be Danny Lee at the US Open. It wasn't on the main coverage, so I think there's only one camera angle we got of it, but he tried to finish his round, tried to get it in. Another putt, back and forth.
He gave up, and then he decided to try again, and then he gave up again, and I think 6 putts later.
Himself. I think it was 6. I'm not exactly sure. Took some frustration out on his golf bag.
I was going to say, I think there was something wrong with the golf bag, because he really seemed to point his anger in that direction afterwards.
I believe, it might have been an alignment issue with his putter that he was trying to correct.
Oh, okay.
Right. And hey, I will say probably the hardest greens the players played all year, Wingfoot. I mean, it's a US Open, but still, I mean, he withdrew. Danny Lee is probably the biggest flub putt of the year.
Yeah, and I feel like there's probably a few people that we could have gone to that might be happy about that. There's a few Corey Connors ones I remember during the year, because I had him in, I was backing him in DFS, and seeing those 4 putts or whatever it was were tough to swallow.
Yeah.
Craig, do you have an honorable mention for us?
Well, similar to Adam, who sort of took on the whole category of putts, I feel like Bryson could be a category unto himself for this one. For all the good that happened with Bryson this year and how much of a career year it was for him, there just were too many head scratcher moments. We've got the I forget what course it was at, but the fire ant situation when he wanted relief because dangerous animals and didn't quite get it on those grounds. He had the blow up at the cameraman who was, he was following him from one shot to the next, and he really felt like it was hurting his brand, is what he said afterwards. And I don't know if he spoke to a PR person before that one, but if so, he should probably look for a new PR person. We've got the 10 at. Where was that one? It was
the Memorial.
Where the shot, the picture that I remember the most of that is him on the green, totaling up the strokes in his head. I think that's the best meme of the year for Bryson.
I say it's never good when you become a meme. When you become a meme or a GIF because of a blooper, it's usually not a good thing.
I think he asked for a third opinion from a rules official on that hole as well.
Oh yeah, that was one where he was like,
second ball,
"I need another instantly." But my favorite Bryson moment, and I don't know if everyone's seen this, but getting off the private jet, getting in the car, just this Bryson brand video that he put out. To me, that's just like just a big head scratch. You're like, I appreciate what you're trying to do. You're trying to build the brand. You're trying to take control of your own image and everything. But maybe run it by a few more people. You need a few critical thinkers in that brainstorming in the writers' room beforehand.
I did notice in that video there was a few protein shakes sitting there, cleverly placed on the plane.
Yeah.
Well, you got to get those in there too. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll touch on that a little later.
As I said at the time, I think it was high production value, maybe lower taste, lower self-awareness.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, with those honorable mentions out there now, I feel like we're ready to award the Grandie, and it pains me to do this, but this year's 2020 Jean Vandeveld Grandie goes to Tiger Woods for his 10 on the 12th hole at the Masters on Sunday. Everybody who listens to this podcast knows that I am the resident Tiger Woods homer. I will always be pulling for the guy. Love everything he's ever done. No, I shouldn't say that, but
yeah, that's a pretty blanket statement
he
for
will
some
always be my
questionable acts.
favorite golfer. Let's put it that way.
Let's hope your wife isn't listening to that part.
but I gotta call a spade a spade. That was on Sunday at the Masters. It was shocking to see Tiger put up a 10. I believe it was 1 in the water, 2 drop, 3 in the water, 4 drop, 5 over the back into the bunker, 6 into the water, 7 drop, onto the green and a 2 putt. So, there's been some big numbers at 12 at Augusta over the years, and that's another place that Tiger can hang his hat at Augusta. He's also on that list now as well. So
yeah, I think it's also stark, and it's a single year can make such a difference, because that was the place where he really took control of the tournament in 2019.
Exactly. So, and that's why I feel okay. I think Tiger can handle getting this Grandie this year. I don't think it's going to be too much of a blow to his psyche. In typical Tiger fashion, he went on to birdie, I believe, 5 of the last 6 holes. So, he's
almost got back to par there on the back.
Almost got it back to par. But Tiger. I look forward to watching number 12 at Augusta next year with Tiger on Sunday, because I believe it will be a different scenario.
I hope. I think it's got to be. But like classic Tiger to get the Grandie trophy, I think it's a little bit of a weak. We didn't have a real true kind of Vandeveld moment, I feel like, collapse. So classic him in a weaker field. He picked up the trophy and he's taking home the Grandie.
Yeah, I think in future years we can really find there'll be more of those like Sunday collapses for someone who really needs to take down. There were a couple this year, but nothing that really stood out from top players. Where they
in big moments as well.
Yeah. Craig.
Okay, so this is one that we're not going to be doing every year, but it's maybe a 2020 special. Maybe it'll carry into 2021. We'll have to see what the season looks like. But we're calling it the fanless moment, the COVID compromises. Golf was awesome this year in the fact that it was early to be back. We were back with professional sports. They did a very good job in so many ways, making sure everyone is safe, limiting galleries, and in a lot of ways, it was really cool because we got to see a lot of the aspects of golf that we don't when it's covered, whether it's seeing the courses without the fans lining them, or whether it's being able to, pick up a little bit more on the microphone between player and caddy because there's just not all the background noise that makes that difficult. But yeah, so we're going to be awarding one, but first let's hear who are the near misses, who are the honorable mentions this year.
Okay, I'll kick it off. So we just talked about Sunday at the Masters, Tiger getting the Grandie. The Masters in November, I think, is a whole discussion in itself for fanless kind of COVID compromises. No fans at Augusta. We saw the course like we've never seen before, both it being in the fall and with no fans. Completely different look. It was still Augusta. Give me a break. It was still Augusta, but players are going to hit to places they haven't hit before. Bryson was going to fly that bunker on 18. All these different things.
Mud balls. Don't forget about the mud balls.
Mud balls. Yeah, I think that's more of a fall thing, but I think an honorable mention is just Augusta this year. No fans in November is kind of a whole story in itself.
Yeah, and you know what? I just think so much props to Augusta for putting that together. Like their course was not 100%. in the shape they like it being in April, but they still made it happen, and it wasn't perfect. And it, as you say, there's so many things about the course that wasn't perfect, but everyone was so ready for a little bit of Augusta National Masters golf at that point.
Oh yeah, I mean we were all jonesing pretty bad for it at that point, and it definitely scratched the itch. I think there at least until we could probably deal with one once a month or so, but it did what it needed to do to get us through till April, I think.
Kev, what do you got for honorable mentions here?
Well, I think one of the things that will be a unique for 2020 thing would be all the lost balls that we had within the course of play.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about lost balls like blowing it way out of bounds, but like lost balls at major championships and other big tournaments where these guys would hit it in the rough and nobody could find it. They do their 3 minutes and nobody found it,
which
and they had to go
was
back,
just recently cut down.
Which was just a recent thing. But realistically, it's never happening if there's fans out there, because somebody saw where that ball landed and will point to it and get attract enough attention to where it was supposed to be that
you've got hundreds or thousands of eyes.
If not just straight up hitting into the gallery and it bouncing off a few people,
or the grass is so trampled down in these areas.
Exactly.
Right.
But so notable ones, I think the first big one was Harris English at the U.S. Open. He's a fair distance back from Bryson going into Sunday, but he was still at that spot where if Bryson did end up having any trouble, he was within striking distance. And
he was in contention without a doubt.
He was, and as it turned out, Bryson kind of ran away with it on Sunday, but Harris on the first hole, he hit it into the left rough, and nobody could find it, and they seemed to be searching a 30-yard area, and nobody found it. It was unbelievable, and you could almost see the disbelief on his face of just I can't believe I'm going to go back and hit 3 from the tee, and I think he ended up making a double there. A good par with his second ball. Yeah. And that was it.
Utter disbelief. Like Sunday, US Open, second to last group, I want to say.
I think so.
Yeah.
First hole, and you're going to, because of no fault of your own, really.
No.
You're hitting 3 from the tee.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that one you got to think was probably in the area there may very well have been fans.
Oh, I think so. I mean, it was between 2 holes. I think there definitely would have been fans.
Yeah, I agree. So there's that one. There was then Bryson at the Masters on number 3. And this was an area where I don't think there would have been patrons, but there would have been people close enough by that they would have seen like where it landed.
And also it was wet, which that area I think in April would be drained a little bit better.
Yeah.
Or I mean, maybe it drains the same, but there's just not the same amount of moisture sitting there.
I agree. But it really is shocking that they weren't able to find that ball, because he was not, he was within the tree line of the hole, essentially. So a lost ball there. And then it happened again at the CJ Cup multiple times. But notably, Rory, I believe, hit one into the bank short of the green going for a par 5, I believe, or driving a par 4. Anyways, with Rory's ball speed and everything, it just obviously missiled into a bank somewhere and submarined itself, or submerged itself deep into it, and they couldn't find it. And then notably, the thing that happened the next day there, when Koepka did the same thing, Rory was down on his belly digging through the grass, because you don't want it to happen to somebody else. It's just such a bad break.
That was a great clip of like people just patting down, like,
and Rory just digging through it with his fingers.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole lost ball in play thing, I think, was a unique to 2020 thing, and I don't think it's gonna happen again. As soon as there's fans, I think that will disappear. So I don't think that was a obviously wasn't a good thing, and hopefully we'll never have to see that happen again to these guys.
Yeah, and so, we're going to get to the one that wins here now. And it's, you could say it's on the same theme with the lost balls, but the Grandie this year for let's call it COVID compromises, is the blue wall at the ANA Inspiration. Or sorry, is it
the
ANA
blue
Inspiration?
Backboard, you mean?
The blue backboard, yeah. So
this is hilarious.
If you haven't seen this, this is LPGA. It's a major championship. If you haven't seen photos of this or video of this, it is ridiculous. So it's a par 5. There's a blue wall on, essentially it's a peninsula green, I believe. But right behind the green, they built this blue wall where there's typically a grandstand.
And sorry to interrupt, but hole 18.
On the 18th, yes. So
on
the 18th hole,
par 5,
the whole, like the feature hole of the golf course, I would say.
Yeah.
Huge risk reward, and they built this blue wall. But we had Brooke Henderson. She lost her ball under it, and her caddy had to crawl underneath it to be able to identify.
And it wasn't just Brooke. I mean, it was like the players openly admitted they were just trying to laser them into the wall.
Well, so the Brooke Henderson, that's the on the lost ball grounds. But yeah, essentially the strategy was to hit your second shot in there, and basically it's a backboard. You're bouncing it off this thing, but hers just happened to squeak under it. You had the leader played it off there to win. And so, it's really, I think that if they were to have a do-over, they might change how they approached that one.
Yeah, if there's no fans at that event in 2021, I'll be curious to see if there's a blue backboard there.
Yeah.
And I heard it explained that they still wanted the title sponsor to have a big billboard sponsor, but there's other ways you can do that, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking of sponsors, I finished my Rusty Nail here, guys. If anybody that is in the Rusty Nail wants to sponsor us, I would be very on board with that.
Yeah, Drambuie, if you wanna throw something our way,
a natural tie-in with golf.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
all
guys,
right,
are
Adam,
we moving on?
What do you got next for us, Adam?
Okay, so our next Grandie is the whitest sneakers. A little bit of homage to our Dundee play here, the Pam Beasley, the Best Dressed Award. So, fashion is huge in golf. I think it's the only sport in the world, correct me if I'm wrong, where you see these guys tweet and Instagram kind of like their lineup of outfits for the week. I don't think you see that anywhere else. So this is the Best Dressed, Best Fashion Moment, the quote-unquote Whitest Sneakers Award. Am I wrong in saying that any other sport does that?
Well, I was gonna say Cam Newton might have something to say about that, but I guess he doesn't script it necessarily.
I would say maybe tennis, but like most other sports, it's what they wear into the arena that really becomes the show, because everyone's so you've got uniforms, whereas tennis might be another one where it really is about what they're wearing during play. The other one that stands out to me a bit is F1, because at least this year they had different helmets for every race. So they would, they would do it up in a different logo, a different scheme, and then that would be raffled away for charity, or they could do whatever they wanted with it essentially. But
that's cool. Or like the goalie hockey mask. Anyways,
yeah.
Golf. I mean, the fashion is a huge industry. It kind of defines a player's look and feel and all that, and even like their audience. I mean, going back to Ricky and the all orange, which I think he's appropriately grown up from a little. But do you guys have some honorable mentions?
Yeah, I'll start off here. The one thing I was going to say, just because I heard this, I was just catching up on my Get a Grip podcast, but one of the Shane Bacon's proposals was for players who miss the cut, because, they get their 4 days of clothes laid out. Yeah. So for players that miss the cut, for like whatever they end up doing on Saturday and Sunday, they still wear the clothes they were supposed to wear, and then like take photos for Instagram of them like mowing their lawn in their outfit, or sitting on the couch watching golf. And yeah, that is a good one.
I like it.
But no, my honorable mention, if you were watching this, I just think it was absolutely awesome at the time. The U.S. Women's Open, they played it in December this year. It got, the final round was delayed from Sunday to Monday. It was in Houston, but it got cold down there. And I think it was that moist cold where it's hard to get warm. It's hard to, that just cuts through so many layers. But whether it was earmuffs, we had Yelimi No with the big earmuffs. We had Lee Six with the big earmuffs. We had a bunch of people with these huge, and I was asking my wife about it, and apparently this is a very fashionable thing that I was totally unaware of. But the big earmuffs are definitely a thing.
Okay.
But then we had some good, Christmas sweater type things.
Yeah.
We had Shibuno with the nice red Christmas sweater. We had Amy Olsen with the pink vest that I really liked. We had all kinds of, as they were mistakenly called them, knit caps, which we know they're just called toques, as any civilized person would call them. But the winner, I think, not the winner of the Grandie, but the winner of the U.S. Women's Open. You might remember she had champagne dumped on her while she was wearing a huge puffy white parka. She had that on the course, and she would take it off right before shots and then make a shot and then put it on her. It was sort of like in American football when these guys come to the sideline and they get the big jacket put on them.
Pretty boss moves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, first of all, I think we'll all be the first to admit we're probably not the best guys to be commenting on fashion at all. But we do know there is one consistent truth with fashion, and that comes with, that's all about the confidence you have when you're rocking these different fashions. So that's a huge part of it. Can you pull off the look or not? Like, well, if you're confident about it, there's a good chance you can pull it off. And that speaks to my honorable mention, who is Harry Higgs. I mean, the guy is just a beauty. He rocks the button down. He rocks the sunglasses all the time, and he just owns his look. And to me, that's all the fashion you need out there on the golf
a fairly
course.
deep V with Harry
a
Higgs.
deep V.
He rocks it.
And a big smile, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sticking with the sunglasses, I love the Harry Higgs, but I think this is the first year that Phil Mickelson has pulled out the aviators. So recently he turns 50 in June, and then in August he rocks these aviators, immediately looks 10 years younger, or I don't know, maybe like a Joe Biden type, like still cool in their later years kind of look. But Phil Mickelson's aviators are up there for an honorable mention for me.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I also feel like it happened to coincide when he got a sunglass sponsorship. So that's a little bit of a classic Phil, but
yeah, classic Phil. Okay, some of our honorable mentions, but the 2020 Grandie for whitest sneakers best fashion moment has to go to Terrell Hatton and the hoodie. I mean, Hoodie Gate became its own kind of thing this year. BMW PGA Championship over in Surrey, England. It was cold, it was wet. Adidas hooked Hatton up with a few hoodies. He wore them, I think, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He won. He won by quite a few strokes. He looked good doing it. The hoodie looked really, really good. It was on my Christmas wish list this year, that's for sure. But immediately after, it became this thing of like clubs telling people they can't wear hoodies or they can wear hoodies. So it has to be Hatton's hoodie. Hatton's hoodie is the fashion statement of the year.
Yeah. You had people planting their flag on one side or the other. I think, what do they call him? The not actual commissioner, but the pseudo commissioner of golf, Rory McIlroy, decided in the next week, or maybe it was a couple weeks later, that he pulled a fresh hoodie out of his Nike bag, I think it must have been, and so they had him out there planting his flag in support. But yeah, if anytime an article of clothing takes up that much of the conversation in golf, I think it has to be on a Grandie winner.
And you know what? I think this is one of the Grandies that passed with unanimous consent. The Academy was pretty clear in their stance on what they thought of the hoodie, and that was 2 thumbs up. So good on you, Terrell. Keep it coming.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Make sure they're clean, make sure they're crisp. You don't want to be sloppy out there, but we're all for the hoodie on the golf course.
Yeah. All right, Craig, moving right along.
Okay, so we're gonna go a little bit quicker through this one. We don't need to get in depth. This is for all our DFS fans out there. Whether you play on DraftKings or FanDuel, you have those people that you backed a little bit more all season long. Maybe you didn't back them and you kept getting frustrated because they were upsetting your lineups. But we've got a few honorable mentions to start off. This is DFS MVP. Honorable mention number 1, the hoodie wearer himself, Tyrrell Hatton. I'm pulling these stats just from DraftKings and just from PGA starts. So this isn't necessarily counting
his Euro
stats.
Right.
But Tyrrell Hatton had 14 starts in 2020. 5 times in those 14 starts, he was in the perfect lineup for that week. So that right in and of itself is...
I have to interrupt because I forgot to ask this in our meeting, our committee meeting. But was that in the optimal lineup or the winning lineup?
So that is in the optimal. So it may not even have been anyone entered that in the tournament, but it's the optimal, the perfect lineup you could have built that week based on salaries. So 5 times he was in that. Now he was a little bit cheaper than some of the top guys. His average salary on the year was $89.50, and he averaged just over 77 points, DraftKings points a game. Next up, a little bit deeper down, if Adam and I were doing a DFS video, this would be down in the sleeper range. Mackenzie Hughes.
Oh, my boy.
20 starts. 5 times he was in the perfect lineup as well. Another 5, a few more starts. But he did it with an average price of $6,600.
66. You love to see that.
So, his average points...
66 from the man himself.
From the 66 man himself. His average points were a little bit lower. Early in the season, you remember, he was missing a lot of cuts. So his average points were only 58. But if you jumped on at the right time, he definitely was giving you returns. His average value on the year, almost 9 points, 8.82 points. Last one here, second highest average DK points on the season, Bryson DeChambeau, 5 times again in 16 starts. He was in the optimal lineup, doing it from a very high salary, over $10,000. He averaged almost 82 DraftKings points a game, but the Grandie this year goes to Jon Rahm. Yeah, you might have been thinking it was DJ, but you may forget that DJ had a few ugly performances along the way. Jon Rahm, only 4 times in the optimal lineup out of 17, but he did it from one of the highest prices every week. He was almost $11,000 average on the season. He had the highest DraftKings points of any player this year, average DraftKings points, and his value was almost 8, which when you're talking a value that high from that price, you're talking about a guy who, like, week in, week out, you can reliably put into your DFS lineups. And even if he doesn't win, he's going to do enough that you hit on some of your sleeper picks, you're going to have a chance of being up there in the big plays.
Rahm cleaning up early at the Grandies.
He's cleaning up early. That's the second one
of the 2020 Grandies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clear that trophy case. You got some Grandies.
I don't know. Are we going to send him multiple trophies, or do we just inscribe what he's won it for and add to the list?
No, you got to get that picture of him holding kind of all of his
Grandies, yeah.
Gotcha.
Which is, again, the Grandie trophy itself is TBT. based
Sponsor
on
pending.
who our partnership ends up being here.
If you would like to sponsor this spot, please call.
All right, well, kind of piggybacking off that idea, we've been talking about all these superstar golfers, and let's get real here. I want to talk about the bet of the year. How did we profit from these guys' performances?
Yeah, enough about the professional golfers. I want to hear about the people that bet on the professional golfers.
Some tournaments we bet as much as $15 on these guys. So let's just break down how that went for us. So this is, just our most memorable bets, not necessarily our most profitable bets from the year, but our most memorable ones. Adam, why don't you start us off with yours?
Yeah, I was trying to think of something for bet of the year. It's like, if you can't teach. If you can't golf, bet on golf. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's where we stand.
That's where we come in.
Okay, I got a couple of highlights. So kind of a shorter year, but a couple of highlights. First one I want to talk about, LPGA. We've talked about a couple categories in a row here, but a late addition to DraftKings to DFS this year, the U.S. Women's Open. We decided to go full on in it. We created some cool stats, some sheets for everyone to share, some videos. But at the U.S. Women's Open for Friday, we tweeted out 4 picks for Friday showdown slate.
Adam picked 2. I picked 2. As we typically do on our video. Oh no, we just tweeted it. Right, we didn't do a video that day.
We just tweeted it, and they were salary savers. So we found salary savers. So those 4 picks, if you plug them with the 2 highest remaining golfers, you're winning a GBP. So
not highest scoring. Like if you just took the highest salaried players, because I think you could take the top 2 salaried with all these ones that we had picked as longer shots.
So we gave 4 picks. I decided to create a lineup in a single kind of $1 GPP. Plugged in the 2 highest, as Craig said, got 100 to 1 return. I saw a couple of our followers tweeted us, left us some comments that they took home a big GBP. I think in the big one, I did see a couple of lineups. Nobody took home the big one, but they got a couple of $200, $300 wins. So that's one of my favorite bets. Is we kind of threw 4 names out there. If you plugged them in, 100 to 1 odds.
Yeah,
100 to 1 to return. I like it.
And then Adam, what was your? You had a pretty nice score this year too, didn't you?
Yeah, I'll pat myself on the back a little bit. I like to donate to the different sports books and DFS websites, but I actually got a return this year from my local Masters pool. I got a late invite, picked I think like a dozen or so golfers. Only person of I think 47 or so people that entered this pool to get all of them through to the weekend. Clean up a nice, I think $800+ win. So that was my favorite bet personally.
Yeah, I like it. I think you also used one of my sleepers for that one to take the win down. So that was that was the Aussie Cameron Smith.
Nice, yeah.
Hey man, we do this together.
Yeah. Speaking of doing this together, both of mine actually I think you contributed to here. So first off, my first big one. So I am still just doing the DFS. I have yet to get as into the betting sportsbook side, but so typically what I do every week, I make a bunch of lineups and different percentages to different players. The first time all year that I essentially went all in on a player, I don't remember if it was definitely above 80%. I might have gone a full 100% exposure on this player, but I went Bryson DeChambeau at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. All the other big players seemed like they weren't playing that week. He was on a crazy string of top 10s, maybe even top 5s at that point. Took down the tournament. I had enough good combinations of other players. I mean, he was very highly owned, so that's why I was trying to get the overexposure by going even heavier on him. But enough good combinations. I fell out of like the biggest money one. But still, I think over 100% return on what I had put in that week. So definitely one that I was very happy with my decision going into that week. There's a few other times I went heavy on players I was not so happy, but that was one of the good ones. Other ones, so on the back of the U.S. Women's Open LPGA, DraftKings kept contests open for the LPGA Tour Championship.
I think this is my favorite one. I like this.
So,
I like this one, Craig.
if you guys are listening often, you may know that me and my wife got a puppy in November. So I've been getting up at some nights, some days as early as 4 or 5 in the morning. And so the contest for this.
Pacific. If I can say Pacific time.
Yeah. So the contests for the LPGA Tour Championship were locking at I think it was 5:30 or 6ish my time. So I was up and I saw that like half the contests were undersubscribed, and so I just decided I made 20 entries for like the I usually 10-20% of what I have as a bankroll I want to bet, so that if things go sideways a week, I don't lose everything. It's just good bankroll management. But I just decided I'll take those same 20 lineups and I'll put them in. I went all in. I pushed the full stack in, and I came back like over 250% return that week. So It was definitely a nice little bankroll builder. Yeah, I think honestly in DFS,
sometimes you gotta push it.
You see the opportunity, you gotta take it.
I mean, based on our discussions here, I think you can all tell that Craig is kind of more of our. He's got a little bit more of a system guy, I would say, where
analytics,
you know, and you got to respect the system, but sometimes you got to push it, and I love seeing that.
Some people, Moneyball, if you've seen the movie, some people think Brad Pitt's the star. Jonah Hill, he's the star of that. He's the star of that show.
I was just gonna say Jonah Hill from Moneyball, and you're like, yes.
All right, well, my favorite bets of the year for me were first and foremost DJ at the Masters. I hit on the outright. I got him early. I believe it was after, what was it after? The FedEx Cup, maybe?
I don't know.
Anyway, I at one point I called for him to win the next 6 majors.
On the pod.
It was at that point that I bet on him for the US Open and the Masters, and I got him at 16-1, and obviously what he did at the Masters speaks for itself.
It was after the Northern Trust when he went minus 30.
Right, that's when it was. It was So I got him earlier than the FedEx Cup because I'm sure his odds went down after that. But that was probably my most profitable bet of the year. The one that was closest to my heart, I think, was going into Sunday at the... actually, it wasn't going into Sunday. I believe it was going into the weekend at the BMW Championship. I took Mackenzie Hughes to top 10 because at the time he was battling to get into the top 30 in the FedEx Cup standings to get himself into the Tour Championship, and of course everything that comes along with that. And as my boy, I knew he could get it done. And we talked at length about that wonderful moment when he grinded out the par on 18 to hit 10 on the number. He tied for 10th, paid out that bet, and made it to the Tour Championship. So
isn't that also the tournament where he had a bad sleep on like Saturday night?
Yeah, his neck. He was actually... I thought he might contend. He was in great shape going into Sunday. He ended up having a little bit of a lackluster Sunday. I think he shot a 71, and it was because he woke up with a stiff neck and just didn't really have it, but grinded it out. Like, we like to think us Canadians are grinders, and he lived up to that. So
I think if we're not careful, we might have to rebrand this podcast the Mackenzie Hughes podcast.
Oh, come on, just wait, all right?
Oh no, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Maybe we do a spin-off. This is Fraser from Cheer.
Talking about... Yeah, like I say, we're probably not done talking about Mackenzie Hughes yet on this Grandies podcast. So, anyway, that one, I think it profited me about $6, but I'll still... I loved it.
But in your heart, the profit was so much more.
I was fist pumping across the kitchen. It was great.
Your heart grew 6 times that day.
Exactly. But with all these honorable mentions, you're probably wondering what could possibly take home the Grandie after all these great moments that we had as gamblers this year. Well, the 2020 Grandie for best bet goes to the one that never happened. Adam's upset pick or sleeper pick of Carlos Ortiz. At what was the odds? 175 to 1. But
No, it was
I think it's
160.
only 160.
160 to 1.
Oh,
So
160, yeah. So Adam did get him as a top 20 bet at 4 to 1.
Okay,
yeah, so sorry, context. Houston Open. We got to figure out where we are. Houston Open, Adam picks Ortiz as his sleeper. Great pick. Top notch, really.
So in our article that comes out on Wednesday, pre-tournament, we have a pick, we have a one and done, and we have a sleeper. And we put the odds next to the sleeper, and yeah. Carry on.
Well, you carry on. What happened?
Okay, fine. Okay, fine, I will. So I liked Ortiz, and I kind of thought, I love to go deep sleepers. I mean, there's nothing more that kind of gets my blood going than a deep sleeper. So I got Ortiz, but then as I was looking at the account, I'm like, 160 to 1, maybe I'll throw an each way on it. Maybe he can kind of place top 5 or something like that. I really like Ortiz, but I don't know if he can do that. So I pulled back. I pulled back from a top 5. I pulled back from a top 10. I'm like, you know what? I feel good about a top 20. Dialed it in. Got the top 20, but he went on.
It's a profitable bet.
3 to 1?
I don't know what it was.
So I think the moral of the story is when you're going to put down that 20 to 1 or that top 20 or that top 10, just throw in one little unit on the win as well, because if your sleeper really hits, you're going to be kicking yourself.
Lessons learned in the first year of Grandstand Golf.
There you go. Adam, why don't you continue on with our next Grandie here?
Yeah, our next Grandie is called the Peyton Manning Award. Thinking, what is Peyton Manning, football player, doing our Grandie? It's the shameless marketing plug which Peyton Manning has perfected over the last couple decades. Hey, as you've heard throughout the show, we are not against making a few extra bucks if you can get some sponsorships.
So can I give a little context? Because maybe not everyone's North American.
Well,
so
famously, I think Peyton Manning enjoys Papa John pizza and Bud Light.
So yeah, American football, Peyton Manning. I mean, I think he's probably the greatest player of all time. I think that's pretty unanimous.
Very questionable. Very questionable.
But anyway, so he won. I think the most famous one is he won the Super Bowl when he was with the Broncos. Gets on. They always get him on the mic right away after winning MVP, Super Bowl MVP, and he. Not only does he plug Papa John's Pizzas, who he's endorsed by, and he owns chains of the pizza place. He gets Bud Light in there and Disneyland. There's probably other ones too. He got into like this 20-second, 30-second clip, but it's just he is the classic spokesperson.
One could argue that it was a more masterful performance than the Super Bowl itself.
The defense really was the MVP that day.
You know what, Tracy? I'm just going to go home, enjoy some Papa John's pizza, have a couple cold Bud Lights, and really enjoy this win.
Then I'm going to take the family to Disneyland.
He paved the way. He got it done. I'm sure he. I mean, come on. He still dominates commercials to this day.
Yeah.
Like Peyton Manning lives on.
Yeah.
So we are naming it the Peyton Manning Award. It could be commercials. It could be product placement. It could be, increasingly the cringe-worthy kind of social media posts. So the Peyton Manning Award. You guys got some honorable mentions?
Yeah, maybe I'll start it out. I think amongst other things this year, Bryson has been the story. There's a few things we can look at. We can look at his, the whole weight gain, which happens to be sponsored by, I can't even remember the protein shake company. I don't really care.
No freebies. A protein shake.
But he's
Other
made
than Papa
sure
John's and Bud
in
Light
every interview, I think he's made sure to mention that 6 or 7 times a day he has such and such protein shake. But the content he's putting out from on his social media accounts of him swinging out of his shoes in his basement, or the more higher production value, him getting off the plane and everything that goes into that. But I think the one that touches, especially maybe me and Adam, because Kevin doesn't do the DFS so much as he does the sportsbook betting, but Bryson. Maybe more quietly than his protein shakes, he partnered with DraftKings this year, which I think it's just, in the last few years, sports betting has become more and more mainstream, and I think DFS is becoming increasingly mainstream, especially in North America, and it's these type of things that just reinforces that when you have the the biggest names in your different games, pairing with the DraftKings and the FanDuels.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what Bryson did this year was a little bit kind of like a little bit cringeworthy, but I'm gonna give the DraftKings a thumbs up because I think that's going out, being the first player to kind of do that. I give a thumbs up for that one.
He's going to want to play up to his price. I mean, let's face it, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to want to disappoint owners.
No.
He wants everybody to go 100% like Craig did at the Rocket Mortgage Classic.
Yeah. I think I might have been on FanDuel, actually.
So my honorable mention is, the commercial man himself, Ricky Fowler. I mean, really, you could point to anything Ricky does. Farmers, he's obviously all over that. The one that was a little cringy to me was at the Masters. He was doing a lot of stuff with Mercedes that week, and really, I just kind of was like, Ricky, go out and play some good golf. Yeah. Maybe get a few extra reps in on the range. Don't do the Mercedes thing. But hey, let's face it, the Mercedes look fantastic out there. Mercedes, if you're looking in for a podcast, I think we could all use a new vehicle. But Ricky Fowler definitely has to be mentioned anytime there's an award going to somebody for marketing plugs, because that's kind of Ricky's MO.
I think, the standard's been set in the sport with Tiger and Nike, and when Tiger's at his best, he was coming out with those iconic Nike commercials kind of matching what Jordan did in the 90s. When someone like Ricky dominates the Golf Channel commercials all year, but he's not getting the
different
results.
Strategies, right? You can either go hard with one like MJ and Tiger did with Nike, or you can just carpet bomb the whole landscape with all of the products.
Do I have an insurance company? Yeah, no. I'll do it.
State Farm?
Yeah.
So with these guys mentioned, Craig, come on, take it away.
No, whoa.
It's Adam.
Because it's Peyton Manning.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, Adam. Excuse me.
I know it's Peyton Manning and Craig.
It's hard to dissociate.
Anyways, the 2020 Grandie Peyton Manning Award goes to none other than Phil Mickelson. So we couldn't do this award without mentioning Phil Mickelson in our first year. He has a sixth sense when it comes to this thing, guys.
I also think we may have to, this might have to become the Phil Mickelson Award, because Peyton Manning is a little bit outside the golf world. So he's the inaugural winner. We'll see. Maybe it becomes the Phil Mickelson Award.
Never have I wanted to change coffee brands than when Coffee for Wellness came out, and Phil Mickelson, whenever he's playing, feature group, whatever it is, he has that logo perfectly turned out. He knows where the cameras are. He's got it dialed down. He leaves it on the green.
Well, I was going to say, this all culminated in the moment he literally put it on the green beside him when he was putting.
So this is at Memorial, and he knew where the camera was. He knew how he was going to be in the shot. He put it behind him where the camera was going to be coming from, with the Coffee is Wellness perfectly facing the camera.
That was a classic marketing plug if I have ever seen one right there. Now,
pretty brilliant.
Was that, let's just think about something here. Was this before or after the match with Peyton Manning? Now that I think about it, did he get some pointers from Peyton?
I didn't even think about that. The handoff.
These guys might be. They weren't teammates, were they? But maybe they were,
But maybe Peyton was just like, hey, Phil, the camera's always pointing at you. You're doing the interview. Why not just bring up the fact that you think that coffee and all the antioxidants in it are really a great way to stay fresh as you're starting to age?
Exactly.
Hey, Phil, you got a great thing going on with the fireside with Phil, but guess what? You don't have to do the work. The TV cameras will do that for you. All you have to do is put your logo wherever they are. They will show you. The inaugural Grandie, the Peyton Manning Award, goes to Phil Mickelson.
Couldn't be a more worthy winner of that. Yeah. I don't think. Okay, anytime you're talking about renaming the award for the inaugural winner, it means something. So our next one is going to be what we're calling the Economy Plus Award. So this is the most improved player award, and we're kind of doing this by world golf ranking. But this is a guy who, he's no longer flying coach to tournaments. He's going to be springing for the private jet, if not already, pretty darn quick. So,
Maybe it's a share of the private jet, but
Yeah,
definitely it's the upgrade. He's no longer
You still want to be cost
plus.
conscious. You still want to be cost conscious, but let's maybe live in a little bit more luxury than we used to, because we're playing really well and we're winning a little bit of money. So, Adam, why don't you get us started off with the honorable mentions?
I think this might be one of the more contested, argued categories that we had in our entire Grandies. So I think I'm going to lay down some foundation. I think Craig has a good point here, and ultimately who the winner goes to, I mean, we'll see. Viewers might have their own opinion, but I'm going with Harris English. So I think Harris English arguably has a great resume for one of the comeback players, most improved players. He moved from 183 in the world to 29. Huge jump in the official world golf rankings. He's not a breakout player. Like, he's been there before. He's won a couple times.
Maybe the one thing we should clarify. We are there. The next one coming up is for a young breakout player. So we're excluding from this category people who they have, they're 20 years old, they're 22 years old, they're just coming onto the scene and showing us how good they are. This is more for people who have been around for a few years, and we're really just seeing them improve their play.
Absolutely. So 2 wins in 2013. He reached 36th in the world in 2014. Fell off a little bit. Like I said, he was 183 coming into the year, but this is what he did this year. Only 2 missed cuts, a 2nd at the Northern Trust, a 4th at the US Open, where we already talked about his lost ball. And then just the consistency of the top paydays, getting those checks, 18 top 25s in 26 events. So very, very consistently top 25. So Harris English, I'm laying down as the Economy Plus award here.
Yeah, it's a good one. I advocated for Harris English being in there.
It's a good honorable mention. It really is.
I think that. So first off, I want to give a quick shout out to Christian Bezuidenhout. Is that good? Bezuidenhout?
Is that a note? Yeah.
So he went from let's see, what was he? 90th at the start of the season in ranking to 35th after the World Tour Championship in Dubai. 3 wins along the way, including back-to-back wins in Africa. We saw some really good play out of him in North America. I think he's still in the process of really establishing himself in North America, but a few top 25s there. But my other one here, I think needs to be mentioned, is Daniel Berger. He went from 153rd in the world to 13th. We had brought up Morikawa's missed putt at the Charles Schwab. Berger was the one who benefited from that with a win there in their playoff. We just saw a crazy streak of top 10 top 10 finishes from him. Was it? 5 straight? 5 straight, and then he missed a cut, and then he had a second and a third. Unfortunately, in our arguments, the politicking in the back room happened. He did fall off a little bit I think if he kept up the pace he was on there early in the return from COVID, I think he probably would have taken this down. He didn't quite keep up the same pace. And then the other thing with Berger is that really I think his ranking was a little bit inflated at the start of 2020 because he had been injured. This is a guy who had broken into the top 30 in the world back in 2016, 2017, and then it had fallen off a bit with injury, and then it's really more like he's reestablished himself just at a higher level than we have yet to see him.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other thing with Berger is I don't think he is ever flying coach.
Well, exactly. Yeah, because
he's already Economy Plus, you're saying?
Yeah.
So, kind of without further ado here, I might as well just get right to it. The 2020 Grandie for the Economy Plus award goes to my boy, Mackenzie Hughes. Mackenzie Hughes went from 264th in the world to start the season to now he's currently at 49th in the world. His big jump, or his first big jump, he had actually dropped as far as 297th in the world, and he jumped up to 158th after a second place finish at the Honda Classic, where he famously went 66.
Yeah, I think just really importantly, most improved player, you never would have guessed it in February because he missed 5 straight cuts to start the year.
Exactly.
So like it was not, you would have not guessed you'd be even an honorable mention in this category at that point.
And then seemingly out of nowhere, he made the cut on the number, fired 66 on the weekend at an incredibly difficult setup at the Honda Classic, and jumped over 100 spots. And then from there, he continued the solid. I mean, he didn't necessarily continue it every week, but because he would miscut T70, but then he finished T3 at the Travelers, where he made those 2 bombs after a weather delay to jump from a tie for 6th, I believe, up to a tie for 3rd, which again jumped him about 60 spots in the world ranking. He had a sneaky kind of T6 at Memorial that I think a lot of people forget about, which kind of gave him his next bump. Got into the Tour Championship, had a decent 72-hole result there.
Well, I mean, great playoffs across the board. 13th Northern Trust, 10th at BMW, and then a top 10 at the Tour Championship.
It did exactly what he had to do to get into the Tour Championship, got in there, went down to the Corolla Punta Cana, where he had success in the past, and did what he didn't quite pull off the victory, but he kind of did what he wanted to do down there with a good solid finish again with a third. And I think that was probably
the closest he's been to being a favorite. I think Zalatoris may have been the actual favorite, but he was one of the top 5 in terms of favorites going into that week, which you never would have expected, a year ago maybe.
Exactly. So, I mean, he's up to 49th, and really, we'll see how far he can go. I'm really hoping he can get a win here, in 2021, and keep jumping up, and maybe he's economy plus now. He's going to be, private jet all by himself here pretty soon if he keeps these results going.
I hope he doesn't replace his one patch, his sponsor here, the Booster Juice. I mean, I think that's why
Juice. They're getting their money's worth.
And NetJets, I think we work just fine.
Hopefully, you can find some room. Yeah.
And quite frankly, you know what? They go well together. Who wouldn't want a Booster Juice while flying private? Like, it's a fantastic combination.
Yeah. It is. So I may have argued against this just because it felt like it was potentially a bit of a homer pick because we love Mackenzie Hughes and we always are talking about him. But I think one of the things that seals it for me, 22 events played in 2020, 7 top 10s. That's as many as he had maybe in the 3 years combined before that. So I may have argued against it, but I'm all for it. I think that beyond just being a homer pick, I think it's a very well deserved Grandie.
Well, I think the other thing too, I agree with it as well, but I think it's one of the strongest contended categories we have this year. There's really good honorable mentions.
Yeah. Craig, as you kind of teased earlier, our next award.
Okay, so
take it away.
This one we're calling the Tommy Morris Award, and maybe a little bit of spoilers, but I just finished reading a book about old Tom Morris and young Tom Morris, so I am just all about this right now, and I'm gonna be putting a video.
Where'd you get that book? Was it from
that was from a certain brother of mine for Christmas, but I polished it off by I think the 28th, so made short work of it. I'm going to be doing a video on, I think, both old Tom Morris and young Tom Morris in the near future here, so watch out for that to drop. But Tommy Morris, so if you don't know about him, he was golf's first superstar. Old Tom Morris, I think, is a little bit more famous because he was the greenskeeper for 40 years at St. Andrews. He's invented many greenskeeping techniques that are still used to this day, like top dressing and very fundamental things that we think of as being part of golf, strategic course design, like all of these things. He essentially, Tom Morris was the one who took golf into the modern era. And Tommy Morris was his son. And he grew up when his dad was a greenskeeper or a custodian of the greens. And essentially, he was just given full reign. Any free time he had, he could go out there and bang a golf ball around. So when golf is in its infancy, you have this kid that grows up with a golf club in his hands. At 13 years old, he first beat his dad, who at that time was the Open champion. So it's not like he beat his dad and like, us going out there and beating our dad or something. His dad was what they called the champion golfer of Scotland at that point, which during Tommy Morris's life would become the champion golfer of the world. But anyway, so 13 years old, first beat his dad. They didn't let him into the Open Championship because he was too young, and so they put up this special exhibition boys game. He beat the other guys, and he shot a score that would have won the Open Championship. Anyways, won his first Open at 17, won 4 straight, and unfortunately, a tragic ending to his story. He passed away at the age of 24 when medicine was a very different thing, and people just things that we now take for granted that people can go to the hospital and survive. They used to take people's lives. So he was one of those ones who was young. He was a superstar, and as often seems to be the case with those who shine very brightly, we lost him before his time. So long story short, this is for the young breakout player.
Craig, I like that. I'm gonna take away your soapbox because that's saved for Sunday. So I'm gonna take that away right now. But I am on his Wikipedia right now for Tommy. What happened in 1871? He said he won 4 straight, but I see a no tournament here in 1871.
So what happened? Actually, great story. So he won. So at the time there was a championship belt, and it was essentially, they put up, I forget how much, 25 pounds, which at that point was an astronomical sum. And the champion would just get to keep that for the year. But it was written into the rules that if you won 3 straight, then you got to keep that for good. So he won 3 straight. And then, so at that point it had been Prestwick, which was the course that started, the Open Championship started there. And then all the major Scotland courses were talking about getting together and it being hosted at different courses, but they couldn't agree on like who would put up different monies for the trophy and stuff. So essentially there was no tournament that year, and then he came out and won it the next year when it happened again.
I love that. I love that you knew that. That's not in our show notes at all. It's just like, let me see if I can stump him right here.
No, I could go deeper. So that soapbox is like, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, we'll stop there.
Well, Adam, who do we have as an honorable mention in this category?
So let me summarize.
I mean, I feel like, is Tommy Morris going to win the award now? Is he winning the Grandie?
I will give it to him if I'm allowed to.
So let me summarize. Young breakout player, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. People might not know Tommy Morris. So this year I'll give a little bit of context. Next year I'll refer them to the video.
I got a couple honorable mentions. So Rasmus Højgaard, I mentioned him on the pod after his win. Really good kind of breakout year. 19-year-old bomber breaking through on the European Tour this year. Got a win at the Handa UK Championship, a third, a sixth, and a solo second preceded that. So great year from Rasmus. I think he's gonna
and just a little bit more. Young Dane, who has a twin brother who is also a very, very talented golfer, and people, Rasmus has been more successful so far, but people
he came across
say
with
that.
You know what? I'm kind of tired of this whole narrative of like there's a good young player or whatever in any sport, and then they're always like the younger one's even better. Like, come on, just give it some credit to the older siblings.
They're actually twins, here. So I don't know
Rasmus,
who.
Way to go, Rasmus.
I don't know who's the older twin here. Like
this is a Daniel Henricks situation.
Oh, they're twins. Oh, okay, my bad.
Anyways, I think he came across for the Bermuda. Yeah. So I think he's going to be a player that kind of wants to establish himself in the U.S. as well. So definitely young breakout, someone to watch though in the future. But I think possibly maybe would have won in a lot of years. But Victor Hovland. Fantastic year. So kind of bookends his 2020 Puerto Rico win open early in 2020, Mayakoba Golf Classic near the end. He flew over for Dubai. 2 major championship appearances. He was 33rd and 13. The 13 was in the US Open. $3.8 million won in 25 appearances. Really, really, I love Hovland going into 2021. Watch out for him. It's a shocker that he didn't pull off the Tommy Morris this year. But
yeah, and I think just further to that, not just the wins, but from, let's see, the BMW Championship until the end of the year, he was in the top 20 in 7 of 8. Let me just count here. 6 of 7
Yeah.
tournaments. So,
His
beyond his
floor
wins, his
became-
consistency and his just general overall game seems to be just continuing to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody I wanted to mention here is Scotty Sheffler. So Scotty came in to the year ranked 66. He's up to 31. Didn't get the win, but he came in as a highly touted prospect, and I think he lived up to that. He played in the final group with DJ in the PGA Championship, ended up tied for 4th, and really held his own there. Followed that tournament up with the Northern Trust tied for 4th again, where he shot a 59 and kind of one up to DJ, if you will. There, I mean, DJ did win the tournament, but I believe he only got to 60 that day, which is,
just a disappointment.
Just the most disappointing 60 you'll ever see. He did finish out the playoffs with a second as a 72-hole score at the Tour Championship. So that was a big world ranking points, grab for him there to get the second and 72-hole score. And really, I feel like he kind of lived up to the hype. And I expect big things from him. He did end up with the positive COVID test and had to miss some time and didn't come back as sharp after that, but he was really trending up prior to that. So I think kind of once he gets his feet back under him a little bit, I think one of you guys on a previous pod was talking about, maybe the COVID-10 that he put on while he was off his feet. So I expect big things from him. I think in other years, if it wasn't that there was just an unbelievable class this year, he would be talked about more.
Yeah.
But.
Okay, so real quick honorable mention before I get to the winner. Matthew Wolff, we haven't brought up yet. Great young player. Obviously we know about the second place at the U.S. Open. He also had a second to Bryson at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And those two seem to be developing a little bit of a I wouldn't say a rivalry, but it seems to be
true.
often that, it was I believe it was when Matthew Wolff got his win at the 3M the year before. Yeah, Bryson was tied for second at that tournament. So they seem to be, when one of them's winning, the other one seems to be right there. I don't know if it's just because they can both hit the ball a long ways.
Drivers?
But really, he went from 117th in the world at the start of the year to 15th now. And I don't think anyone is thinking that he's going to be falling off anytime soon. I think we may not even have seen the best from him yet.
And maybe I give him a little bit of a hard time, but I feel like a little bit too inconsistent to take it home this year. But the flashes are great.
Yeah. And speaking of consistency, the person who will be taking home the Grandie, the Tommy Morris Award this year, is the person who made the most cuts to start their PGA Tour career since a Mr. Tiger Woods, Colin Morikawa. He went from
Way to go, Colin.
65th in the world at the start of the season. Everyone knows. Oh, sorry. He went from 65th to 7th now. Everyone knows about the PGA Championship. Most people don't remember that there was a little bit of a fumble as he was lifting the trophy. The lid fell off the trophy, which makes. I feel like he's a hard person not to like and not to cheer for. He's just so amiable and just seems like such a good dude. So I'm excited for what we are going to see from Colin Morikawa. We know about his ball striking. We know, especially his approach play. He's not the longest off the tee, but he's super accurate. His approach play, though, has the potential to be the best in the world. If he can, improve the putting, make the putting a consistent thing, I think that the sky is the absolute limit for him in terms of his talent. And so he is someone that we will watch with great interest.
And let's be clear, although he won this award this year, that's this year. Everybody we mentioned here in our honorable mentions are guys we're excited to watch over the next little bit. And I think Colin Morikawa came in probably as the most polished. But as these guys get their reps in and their games kind of mature, I think this is going to be, a debate that rages on for decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I think one of the things that is cool to me about it is all of them have very strong games, but they have different strengths and weaknesses, which, that makes it exciting. So, it's going to be fun to watch these guys. Okay, I'm going to take a time there.
All right, well, here we are back from our...
Sorry, just a sec, guys. I had to grab another drink. I'm trying this new beer here. I think it's going to be pretty good. It's a long night. Have a drink with us, but this is the beer I'm drinking. I'm sorry if you're listening to the podcast. You're going to have to check out our YouTube at whatever timestamp this is, but this is the beer that I'm choosing to drink this Grandies.
Yeah. Next year, who knows?
All right, guys. Well, let's keep it rolling here. The orchestra was getting out there a little bit during the description of that last award, so we got to at least get the presenter or I guess the recipient on the stage before that happens next time.
It's not usually that you're getting pulled off. You're getting the curtain raw.
As you're describing what the award is for.
Yeah.
But here we go. So our next award is the Bloody Sock, aka the Curt Schilling Award, and this is the award for the story that the media just beat to death this year. And that's not to say these aren't worthy stories, but I mean sometimes they are unworthy, but sometimes they're worthy. But we really just have had enough of the talk about them, and they were overcovered, if anything.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it's a story that didn't need to exist in the first place. Sometimes it's a story that existed, and then it really just was beat to death because the media needs to cover things.
Yeah. So Kevin, I think you need to explain the Bloody Sock a little bit here.
Well, I mean,
we got a worldwide global audience.
Okay, fair enough. So Curt Schilling was a pitcher in Major League Baseball. The Bloody Sock incident came when I believe he was pitching for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic.
Or the Diamondbacks, it might be.
Was it the Diamondbacks? I don't know. Anyways, he apparently had an injury to his ankle, which required stitches, and probably about 1,000 times during his pitching performance that game, they cut to a shot of his sock, and there was apparently some blood on his sock, which, there's been rumors it was red nail polish, and it was all blown out. It was nauseating how much focus this got for a long time. But he pitched a brilliant game, and it became the Bloody Sock game, but really, it was a little bit much.
It was beat to death.
It was
brilliant pitcher.
I don't care if you're the biggest Curt Schilling fan out there. You're probably okay, that's good.
Let's talk about him pitching instead of another close-up shot of the Bloody Sock.
Yeah.
Right.
Game 6 ALCS. He was with the Red Sox, which I find quite ironic.
Right. So Adam, why don't you get us off with an honorable mention here?
Honorable mention, I touched on it before with the whitest sneakers, but it's the hoodie gate. I mean, the hoodie in golf. Who knew this would be such a controversial, talked about topic all year? Maybe the media didn't have enough to grab onto, but hoodies on a golf course apparently became a thing for a couple weeks. I think it's mostly gone and passed, which is good. But I think, with this award, we have to talk about kind of quote unquote hoodie gate, but I think it's passed, but it had too long and too much conversation, I think.
Yeah.
The fact that it was controversial, really.
Yeah. To me, it's a non-story that gets drummed up into a story. It's a classic case of that.
But let's face it, I don't even think it's over. I think it's lingering.
That's probably true.
So I'll get into an honorable mention here next, and this may step on the toes of the winner a little bit, but the distance debate, it is just getting, to me, it's nauseating. There's a few, as the committee was getting together to talk about this, we realized that there was little bit of different opinions amongst ourselves. So we may actually have to dabble our feet into the.
Whoa! Are you admitting that we, in fact, are the committee, the academy?
Oh shoot! Anyway, so I thought it was a less controversial opinion between us than it was. So maybe there is a reason this debate takes up so much space in the golf world. But one of the ones that I think is just beaten to death is whenever a golfer hits from, I don't even know what they're hitting these days, say 200 yards, and they're like, oh, it's a 7-iron, and the guys are like the old golfers sitting in the booth are like, oh, a 7-iron, I remember hitting a 4-iron from there. And then, I mean, one of the things that I'm sure most people appreciate now, they've actually changed what lofts they put what number on. So, a 7-iron today is the same loft as a 5-iron from that day. But because you can get shots up out of, off the ground easier with newer technology, they kept changing it because they're like, you'll hit your clubs 10% further with this, because they're gradually changing the lofts. And you didn't notice because you were still able to get it up in the air the same as your old 7-iron. So, there's aspects of the distance debate that remain controversial, but there's just so much of it that is just fluff.
So I completely agree with that. I kind of forgot about that, Craig. The par 3, when they're standing over a par 3 and it's like 205 yards and he's pulling a 7-iron, they're like, oh, that is...
Faldo's just up there with his mind blown in the booth.
As he's watched every golf event this year, and they're always hitting 7-iron from that distance.
Yeah, well, I agree. The distance debate was something we heard a lot about, and it was kind of beat to death. And so,
it's also not going
tune
away
in the new
soon.
year for our take on it. So this year, I don't think that there's any question that the Grandie goes to Bryson DeChambeau for. He was the story in golf this year. Yeah. And whether you like him or not, he was the story. And what he did was amazing, really. Like, I was reflecting on this, and I don't believe that Bryson's transformation that he did would have occurred without the COVID break. But given that it
may have accelerated.
It accelerated it. So he was already kind of getting there when the President's Cup happened in December. He had already started to bulk up. Yeah. He had already started to bulk up and had decided that he was going to chase distance. And then but he hadn't been playing very well, and he didn't play well in the President's Cup at all. And then the break happened in March there, and that gave him 3 months essentially of just gym time, gym and swing speed time. And he worked on it, and he got it to the point where he could swing at really like unprecedented speeds for the PGA Tour and keep it relatively straight. And that is something that nobody had ever seen before. And the distances he was carrying it were pretty unprecedented. And of course, that's, people dig the long ball. It's always been the case. And across all sports, all the time. So that was something that was covered in a big way for good reason. He went on to win the U.S. Open when, of all the majors, I think people thought that was the one that he couldn't win because of the setup, and it wasn't about it. Was
when in fact that was set up perfect for him.
Exactly. So it was the story in golf this year, I think, is Bryson, and it's not without reason. He lived up to it in a lot of ways. And I think even though it was a story that's beat to death, I think he had a Sports Illustrated cover at one time, how Bryson broke golf. We still are kind of keen to see what happens next year. Can he keep this up? Is it something that, I've heard some takes where they think that it's unsustainable and that he could injure himself because of the violent nature in which he swings with the weight he has on. Is it something that can be maintained? Who knows? We're all kind of waiting to see what happens. So that the story continues, I guess. And so Bryson, cherish this Grandie. Who knows? You may be one of the few consecutive winners of Grandie from one year to the next if you keep up your your current pace.
Yeah, it's another one that we may have to consider changing the name if the coverage of him continues the way it has been too.
Well, I don't know if we can go that far yet. Phil is like an icon. We can't. I don't know if Bryson's achieved that status yet.
Maybe not. The one thing I think in terms of less so about Bryson, but more the coverage of Bryson, when Adam Scott came back at the PGA Championship, I think he played a practice round with, or he was asked before the tournament, like, as everyone was this year, what do you think of what Bryson's doing? And Adam Scott was like, honestly, I expected by the coverage that I had seen that he was going to be out here swinging like a long drive, like he was going to be swinging out of his shoes and out of his stance. Like, yeah, he's hitting a long ways, but it's sort of just on the upper end of the spectrum of what guys do here now, like,
right.
Essentially, like, the hype does not match the story he had been hearing, which is exactly why he has won this Grandie.
Yeah, so I don't want to be the media, but I need to have my 2 cents as well. So my 2 cents with Bryson, it's completely warranted. He has leaned into it a little bit, which I think is a big part of it.
I think he's definitely.
If he brings it up in every interview, then it's not just
But he's open, which I respect. I respect that he's open with interviews. But we can't forget the golfer that he was before. This is not a long drive champ coming.
Exactly.
He won 4 times in 2018. He's a USAM winner. Like, he's one of the best putters on the planet for the last 4 or 5 years. His golf game has always been complete. He's been a top 30 or so golfer in the world for a while. Top 20 golfer in the world for a while. He just decided, I think there's an edge. And he has a funny approach to it. Absolutely. But he found it. He thinks there's an edge and he's going to explore it. And people have beaten it to death. But yeah, I don't really know where I'm going.
And I think just real quick, to his credit, I think that he saw that there was an edge, especially in the way they were setting up courses for major championships. And so, he was, part of the story about Bryson was he really, until this year, he really hadn't been competitive in majors. And I don't think he had a top 10 in a major until this year. And so this is one of the things he felt like, the way they're setting up courses for majors, I need to go out there and I need to get more distance and I need to be able to swing through long, tough, rough better.
Which, what is interesting about that is that the person who maybe personified the major setup and the success of major setups was a guy who ended up having a little bit of beef with Bryson.
Yeah, Brooks Koepka.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We may touch on that a little bit later on here. We'll see. Adam, why don't you get to our next award?
The next award, guys, is the Y.E. Yang Award. So for golf fans that have been around for a while, Y.E. Yang, big upset over Tiger. It's a come from nowhere win. We always talk on the pod that winning on the PGA is really, really hard. So these are wins we didn't see coming. It's the dark horse. It's the upset. These are the wins that we didn't see coming. Kev, I feel like you got a couple, especially later in the year, we had a couple guys maybe past their prime take home some wins. So what are some honorable mentions?
Well, honorable mentions. Let's start with Brian Gay. Yeah. Brian Gay's last win was in 2013. So right there, I mean,
sometime
you're not exactly expecting it at that point. Going into the Bermuda tournament, he was ranked 318th in the world. He had only made 2 of 11 cuts since the restart after COVID. This was out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, for a little bit more context, this win gives him an exemption until he's going to be on the Champions Tour. So,
exactly.
He's a little bit long in the tooth.
So the only reason I think he's an honorable mention and not an outright winner of this award is because he did tie for 3rd at the Bermuda last year, which was it tied for his highest finish since his win in 2013, which was at the Humana Challenge in partnership with the Clinton Foundation. So a major tournament. But no, I obviously say that tongue in cheek. It wasn't a big tournament that he got his win, and he hadn't really done much since then. He's had a solid career on the PGA Tour, but he's not a guy that you have on your radar, even that you're picking as a sleeper at 160 to 1 or anything like that. Yeah. So he was definitely out of nowhere. Another guy who is an honorable mention for kind of the same reason is Martin Laird. So he won the Shriners this year. He was 351st in the world when he won, and he was not playing well at all. But he had won the Shriners in 2009. So
I mean, this category this year could be called like the horses or courses.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Once I'm looking at all our honorable mentions, and I'm like, oh yeah, actually, there's a little bit of a similarity there too.
Exactly. Yeah. So both those guys definitely out of left field, but there was some history at the courses they were playing, or at the events they were playing. So, I think we had to give the award. We had to give the Grandy to somebody else this year.
I'll piggyback off that before I get to you, Craig. I got to talk about Robert Streb. Late in the year here, won the RSM Classic, but just like the other guys here, he won the event in 2014. So he's a horse for the course, but coming in, he missed 7 of his last 10 cuts and was ranked 367th in the world. So there seems to be some kind of trend this year, but another honorable mention, Craig.
Yeah, Andrew Landry came in this year, won the American Express, which is, I believe, in Palm Springs. He was ranked 240th going into that, but I think just as relevant, going into that tournament, he had missed 7 of his last 8. He had missed the cut in 7 of his last 8 starts. So it's not like he's ranked 240th and you're seeing this coming. It really just more one of these cases where he has a good feel for this course. He has had success there in the past. He came in, he had a good week, and he took the thing down.
Yeah. Okay, so a pretty contested category again in this Grandie, but the 2020 Grandie Y.E. Yang Award goes to Jim Herman.
Jim Herman.
Jim, the Herminator.
And I feel like it's because a little bit our podcast is ramping up right around the Wyndham, but just like less so like the stats around it, but like how it happened. I think Jim Herman is the winner for the Y.E. Yang Award. He made everybody in the world feel better about their water bottle drinking skills.
I was going to say, like the story of the year, you're going to be a contestant for this award when you go to drink water while you're waiting to see whether you're going to have to go into a playoff or not, and you forget to take the cap off the water bottle.
Yeah. So, he's ranked 318th going in. He has won on the PGA Tour before, but I think he's 43 going into the Wyndham Championship. I think Billy Horschel was charging. Billy Horschel was in control. I think everybody thought Billy Horschel was going to win. Yeah. And Billy Horschel had about a 10-foot kind of down to the left type putt to push the playoff. But the thing I really like
was pretty much the one that Jim made.
Yeah, I was going to say, both of those players made excellent shots into the 18th hole there, and Herman made his, and Horschel didn't. And
yeah.
But the thing with Herman is he went out and won this, though. Like, he didn't fall into this.
Did.
He went 61, 63 on the weekend. Like, that is a dominating performance.
And I was going to say, with the, the kind of the fun we poke at him about the water bottle thing and stuff, he played unbelievably. And even, the shot he hit into 18 with a 5-iron from a downhill lie, like, it was unbelievable. He hit it to about 8 or 10 feet and made the putt for birdie. Like, he absolutely deserved to win that tournament.
Yeah, and so often
we
60 feet.
So often we expect, say a Horschel, who is a bit more of a name. We expect the person who's the journeyman competing against that guy to fade in the moment when they have to hit that shot into the green on 18th. And with Herman, it was just the opposite. He made a huge shot, steps up and makes the putt, and Horschel also hit a great shot. But yeah.
So this is a put your chin up high. This is a good award to win. Y.E. Yang Award, Jim Herman, 2020 Grandie. It's yours, buddy.
Which, you know what? I think Jim leads us perfectly into the next award. Craig, take it away.
Okay, so this award, it started out being called the Swag Award because, Kevin came up with the idea for this award and he didn't really realize that swag to most people means like, their gear, what they're wearing, what someone's giving away, the free swag you're giving out. So
stuff we all get.
So, we had to change it. It's called the Swagger Award. Swagger is one of those things in sports that sometimes it can take onto a life unto itself. It can, the difference between the player who comes in with swagger if you watch the Michael Jordan documentary, I think you got a good feeling of what swagger can do for you as an athlete. So, whether
but let's also just preface this by saying, as we discussed, well, I should say, as the Academy discussed this award, we
the
realized
committee, I think
slightly...
Academy might be trademarked.
The
probably stay away
committee,
from that.
Well, we're not really sure what it's called yet, but we'll work on that. But we realize everybody has a little bit of a different idea of exactly what swagger entails, or what swag entails. So, with that said, Adam, why don't you get us started?
I mean, I'll kick it off. I think swagger is so many different things, but I'll talk about two people here that are connected and didn't have that, maybe had some swagger on the course, but has proven to have that swagger on the course, but had it off the course this year. That's Brooks Koepka and Jenna Sims. I mean, dominating Instagram. He comes back with all these, the shot to Bryson, the mention to DJ at the PGA Championship. Brooks has this swagger. He didn't personify it on the course this year, but him and his girlfriend Jenna Sims, like, they did the interview whenever he's rehabbing in like somewhere in the tropics, and he's like, it's just like scantily clad. He's got it.
I think when you see their Christmas photo posted on Instagram, you get what their swagger is.
Yeah, and I think Brooks started his swagger game off pretty sweet this year when it was in January when Bryson in a live stream had said that after the body issue that Brooks didn't even have a six-pack, and Brooks shot back with a picture of his 4 major championship trophies and said, "You're right, I am too short of a six-pack," which I mean is pretty much the ultimate comeback for something like that.
I guess real quick while we're on Brooks as an honorable mention, I wasn't going to bring this one up, but Rory, I think this is more so maybe less the swagger and more the clapback, but after Brooks came out at the PGA Championship saying he wasn't worried about DJ because one of them's used to performing on Sundays at majors and the other one isn't. Essentially, Rory came out and said, I forget how many wins DJ had at the time. It was 24, 25, something like that. And he's like, listen, like, one of you has 7 wins on the PGA Tour. One of you has over 20. I think you maybe just keep it down a bit until your resume gets a little bit longer. And from that point, I mean, we know Brooks battled injury, but he had a bad Sunday and he had a bad few months after that. DJ, he didn't take it down that week, but his trajectory after that point was straight up. So, just a
bulletin board material. You never know.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, you got one that I don't know about. So let's.
Well, I mean, when we were talking about this, it was kind of on the heels of the PNC Championship, and the father-son sorry, it's not the father-son, it's the family event.
Yeah.
Rightly so called the family event, but Charlie Woods at the PNC was, as a huge Tiger homer that I admittedly am. Charlie he stole the show as far as I'm concerned. So when talking about this with you guys, I agree that the media, drinking it in, and it was
if this happened in January, Charlie might have won the Bloody Sock Award. Let's just say that. It came too late in the year.
I still am surprised we didn't bring Charlie up for the Bloody Sock Award, because that was beat.
Hey, now we did.
Anyways, but listen, you can't blame Charlie for it.
No, not at all. It's more the media
it's the media.
Yeah,
it's the media.
But Charlie, it was great to see a little mini Tiger out there just exuding all the Tiger confidence in a innocent form that was just very pure, and fist, whether it be the fist pump or the stiffen it with a fairway wood for his first eagle. Or, trash talking JT. It was great.
With the note in the bunker. And
the note in the bunker, yeah. I thought he just kind of exuded what the Swagger Award brings, but you know what? He's ineligible as an amateur. So
I completely agree. I think he has that swagger. Of course he has that swagger, but I don't want to be that media. I don't want to be that media to him. I don't want to be the bloody sock to Charlie. I'm gonna pass.
Fair enough.
You know?
Fair enough. So the other one I wanted to bring up was DJ at the Masters, and I know for some reason you guys kind of thought this maybe not so much, but I was pushing for it pretty hard because DJ was just pulled the ultimate swagger move, and that he seemingly doesn't care, but he just keeps winning. So it's like, what are you gonna do about it? I'm just gonna keep sauntering up and hitting all these shots.
I think
and I'm
DJ is one of the most
Masters by
natural
5.
swagger people on the PGA Tour. Where
He is. He's got so much swagger. So, he goes.
I think as
wins
soon as
the
he got rid of
Masters.
the soul patch, his swagger's just shot right up.
They talk about like Rory's like bouncing a step, right? DJ just has this like natural kind of like swag and
he's doing stuff at the Masters like that. I know. Shane Bacon and Max Homa were talking about how Fred Couples went in that group because Homa played with Fred Couples at the Masters, and Fred was playing his layup shots. He was playing like low skimming shots so he could get the mud off the ball.
Clean off.
On his,
right.
The organic matter.
The organic matter, that's right. But DJ's doing that in the final group. It's not even a thing that is being talked about, but he's playing all these kind of punch layup shots, and his DJ, he doesn't need to lay up.
And I was going to say, I think that's the difference
play.
between DJ at like 36 versus 26.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's not talking about it. He's not making a big deal. He's just doing that. And you see him checking out his ball. He's really scoping out to see if he's got mud on the ball. But you know what? He's also got a 4-shot lead. So why not just lay it up? Probably still made the birdie. I can't remember.
No, both par 5s on the back 9 laid it up with little low rollers. Both of them made birdie. So
exactly. So I mean,
similar to Jenna Sims and Brooks, him and Paulina had a little bit of swagger going on Instagram after that.
This is what I was gonna follow it with is, so he wins the Masters, heads down to St. Barth's according to Instagram, proceeds to withdraw from
RSM.
The RSM because of the stress and everything, and the party was still raging. I think the ultimate swagger moment here is going to be, and he's going to get this for sure, he's probably just not going to show up to next year's Masters and win next year's Masters. He's not going to play again till then. He's going to saunter back onto the course and don another green jacket on Sunday.
I feel like he'll show up for the players. There's a lot of money at stake in some of these tournaments.
Pretty big check. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, real quick, one last honorable mention. We brought it up a little bit before. Bryson, U.S. Open. Going in, I think it's so funny because going into the Masters, everyone's talking about how this is Bryson's tournament. And, all of us were like, I don't see, I like Bryson's game. I just don't see it being as dominant at Augusta as people seem to think. It's too much recency bias. But going into the U.S. Open, everyone is like, he's the butt of the joke about how he's talking about taking this course on. He's talking about just, hitting it as far as he can down these holes. Doesn't matter, obviously preferably in the fairway, but if he's in the rough, he feels like he can get something up out of that rough. He was talking about it beforehand. He was the joke. He went out there and backed it up. To me, that is swagger. That is having supreme confidence in your ability, your approach. And so, unfortunately, it's going to be an honorable mention this year. But
I just want to say, he doesn't have the walk, but he has, I'm going to do me, and then you guys can kind of try to chase me. That's swagger.
It's more it's less the charismatic, the image of swagger. It's more the, here's how I'm going to play this, and
the confidence.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing too, this kind of goes a little bit with what I was saying about the fashion thing, but we got 3 guys here that don't necessarily have a ton of swagger talking about swagger, so maybe we can recognize it. I'm not really sure, but we're trying to identify it anyways.
Yeah.
So the Grandie this year. The Grandie goes to, this might be the long shot, the out of the blue winner, Jin Young Ko. If you don't know who I'm talking about, well, then you obviously don't follow the LPGA at all because she's the number 1 in the world. But she came back. So she after COVID happened, she is Korean. She's from South Korea. She stayed over there. They have a very, very strong competitive Korean LPGA over there. She played over there until November. I can't remember the name of the first tournament she came back to, but then she played in one tournament. She played in the Volunteers of America. She was 34th in her first tournament. She was 5th in her second tournament. Going into the U.S. Open, on the Monday, I guess, at the US Women's Open.
Monday.
She still had not qualified for the LPGA Tour Championship. As she made the turn to go onto the back nine, she continues to go low that day, plays her way into second place, gets into the Tour Championship, having only played in 3 events, goes to the Tour Championship, and she wins the thing by 5 strokes. So, like, it is just, like, to me, it's just the ultimate swagger. Like, when can I show up to potentially go out there and win the Tour Championship? Okay, so, yeah, I'll show up in November. Se-Young Kim had been on an absolute tear on the LPGA this year. And many, she was the betting favorite going into the U.S. Women's Open, and I think maybe still for the Tour Championship, and well deserved. Right. She came second in the Tour Championship, but she was 5 strokes back. Like, Jin Young Ko essentially was like, "Hey, I've been gone for a little bit, but I'm still the top dog," and to me, that's just absolute swagger.
I love it. It is kind of like DJ walking up to Augusta after not playing for 4 months.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, I do think that epitomizes what we're talking about with swagger. Like,
100%.
When do I need to come to win? Yeah, okay, I'll come in and I'll win.
It also doesn't hurt for the committee's sake that she happened to win me some money that week. So that always will help your chances for the Grandie.
Absolutely. All right, guys, well, moving on here, we have the Maximus Decimus Meridius Award. So this award was inspired by Joel Damon this year at the Zozo at the Sherwood Golf Country Club. On the 15th hole, he made a 15-footer for birdie, and he looked up and he said, "Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? Is this not what you came for?"
So this is the award inspired by Gladiator. The most exciting moment, the best performance, the thing that we were just, it was captivating. We loved it. It had everything. It's what every golf fan wanted to see.
Yeah.
So, there was more of these than you might expect this year, given that there wasn't fans there, and you would think it'd be harder to kind of get up for these, but there was some unbelievable finishes and with heavyweights involved. So, Adam, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I want to start off because I have a little offense to the whole Joel Damon, because I think it was Harry Higgs who was walking down the Safeway fairway after his albatross with his arms spread out. I was saying, maybe the mic wasn't on him at the time, but I'm sure he was saying, "Are you not entertained?" So Damon got the shout out, but I want to give Higgs the credit as well for the Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Maybe this is a more common boast on the tour than we're aware of.
Yeah, maybe it is. That's the shit. Okay, so not exciting honorable mentions, but I gotta throw them out there. I'm gonna talk about the major winners. So it's Bryson, it's DJ, it's Morikawa, but I feel like they're just not getting the win because they didn't have that clash, that gladiator clash. But you can't give this category without mentioning them. So it's the major winners is the honorable mention for me.
I mean, Bryson and DJ both kind of ran away with it.
Yeah.
Morikawa did enough so that it wasn't super compelling on the last couple holes.
Yeah.
I think the one you could make the argument for would be Bryson, just because it was not expected to, like, I think, was he the only one that ended up under par? But essentially he ended up, it was one of those, like, are you not interested? Like, what do you want? Like, I did what I could do.
What else can I give
course.
you?
Yeah. And maybe on that note, to me, one of the, like, so we've got Gladiator once he gets to Rome and he's in the Coliseum, he's playing in the big matches. But when he said this line, he was in the provinces. He was just cutting through people and it wasn't until Proximo told him he had to win the crowd, and to me,
win the crowd,
and you'll win your freedom. But to me, the one in the provinces is DJ. DJ's disappointing, and if you're listening, you're not watching. I'm saying disappointing in air quotes. Disappointing 60 at the Northern Trust. The only reason this was disappointing was because he shot 27 on the front nine. He was 9 under. But this guy goes out there. He was minus 30 on the tournament. The next closest was Harris English at -19. Like, this is a classic. He's out in the provinces just slaughtering the competition.
And it's like, come on, DJ, win the crowd, buddy. This isn't exciting. You're just mowing everybody down.
Yeah, he just cut through everyone in too few strokes, and you got to give people the show. DJ did give us the show in
then he started to learn a little bit. He built up
at BMW the next week.
Yeah.
Him and Rom put on a bit of a show. We talked about Rom's putt. It was the Grandies Award winner. But DJ's putt there to get into the playoff could have been as well. He made a great putt to go into that. Unfortunately,
with as much emotion as you'll ever see from DJ.
Unfortunately, this year that is just going to be an honorable mention and a very, very strong.
Shockingly so. Yeah. I'd be to not mention Mackenzie Hughes 6-footer at that same tournament to T10 was a
moments earlier. The real story of the tournament happened.
So, but that's a little personal, I think. So we can't go with that. But this year's Grandie for the Maximus Decimus Meridius Award for most exciting moment, it has to go to JT and Morikawa at the Workday Charity Classic. That was unbelievable. That stretch coming down on Sunday and the playoff, it was so good. It was so good. So just to set the scene a little bit, JT took a 3-shot lead with an eagle on the 15th. And at that point, you kind of thought, three-shot lead, 3 to play, it's over. Well, DJ made a few bad swings. He ended up bogeying. Oh, sorry. Yeah, JT.
DJ's such a story this year that it's hard not to bring him up.
JT, bogey 2 of the last 3. He had a putt to win on the 72nd hole. He missed. So they go to the playoff. They go back to the 18th hole. And JT drops the 6-foot bend, 50-foot putt.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably more than 6 foot of bend. And I don't know. I'd have to look at the putt, but that thing had all kinds of turn in it.
There's a sick putt.
And this is maybe one of those moments. It was so good, and it was such a shame that there wasn't a crowd there because literally all you heard was JT being like, yeah, which was... It just did not do the moment justice with how exciting it was, because I think that's probably what everybody in their living room sounded like. And then Morikawa goes and answers with a 24-footer of his own, which looked like it was going to go left until the very end, and it just creeped back in because it was perfect speed. They go to a second playoff hole where...
Sorry, just real quick. I think, so, we've spoken, and it's been spoken of at length, how not having a crowd was such a thing this year. But to me, that is the one that stands out. That Morikawa putt is the one where it stands out the most, that it might have actually affected the outcome. Because after JT made that putt, it would have taken a while for minutes. The buzz, you get the roar, but then you get the continued buzz for minutes, 5 minutes probably. So whether they could get
vibrating the ground probably.
I think that he might still have made it, and it would have been sensational if he had, and the crowd would have gone just as bonkers again. It would have been that much harder to make that putt after JT had.
Yeah. So then on the second playoff hole, JT had another chance to win it and just slid his birdie putt by. So they go to a third one, and finally JT made a mistake and drove his ball behind a tree, and ended up leading to a bogey. Missed a 14-foot par putt, and Morikawa won it. But the finish of that tournament, I think, was unparalleled this year for excitement, and with two gladiators of the game,
absolutely gladiators.
JT being in the top 3 all season. He, as Adam alluded to earlier, was number 1 for a minute, and Morikawa being the young up and comer.
I think actually at this point he might have been number 1 shorter than the amount of time this podcast will have gone on.
That might be true. Yeah, that might be true. But just an absolutely awesome finish. One that we can only hope we can have again, with fans there to kind of give us the full atmosphere and the full excitement of it. Because, those guys, they did win the crowd, and I think they won the Grandie.
Even if the crowd wasn't there, they definitely still won the crowd.
They did.
They won the crowd, and I think when like the crowd being like sports fans in 2020 like needed that in the middle of July in a 2020 year, man, that was a battle. That was awesome.
Adam, what's our next award here?
Moving on is the penultimate award of the evening, gentlemen. I wasn't going to do the whole podcast and I'll drop a penultimate. Come on. Okay. So we renamed this late. The committee, we're calling it the chicken soup for the golf fan's soul. So what does that mean? It's the best.
Sorry, as the person in the family with a law degree, I'm just going to put an asterisk next to that because we will see whether we will keep naming it that or not. But
we'll see. Hey, we'll see. Best, most heartwarming golf story of 2020. 2020 was, just like we just said, a weird year. A lot of crap going on. A lot of hard year for everybody. Like the chicken soup books in the late 90s, if you never saw them, they gave the good, kind of soothing, good for your soul, good for your heart, highlighted the best of humanity. So the Grandie is the chicken soup for the golf fan's soul, the best heartwarming story of the year. What do you guys have? Craig, do you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, so, this one might be, it's less so maybe a moment, but I think it's just something that I think was done very well. So one of the things I think the PGA Tour does a really good job of, they travel from city to city. In each of these cities, they do some, usually the event itself, the PGA Tour event, proceeds from that go to a charity, but then oftentimes they'll do pro-ams in the lead up to the tournament, and from that pro-am there's a huge amount of money raised for charity. And so with the bubble and COVID and everything happening this year, it just wasn't, it couldn't be done the way it is usually done. So so from what I know, this idea originated from Bubba Watson and the players, but they decided to start doing these Wednesday charity matches where they would get 4 players out, 2 versus 2, and they would essentially play 9 holes. I don't know if it wasn't scramble. I think it was best ball.
It was a weird format where they got points for hitting into a bunker.
Oh, yeah. So it was a point system, but I think they all played their own ball the whole way through the hole, if I'm correct on that. But regardless, they raised a ton of money for charity. I think if you ever watched any of these, they actually, depending on who was playing and how loose they were and how, much they enjoyed being on camera, it was great entertainment. Like this is one of those things. I think the pro-ams will come back because I think that's a good way to get a lot of money out of, especially rich people when they get the opportunities to play with golf pros. But I would love it if these type of things continue. I think there's an appetite for it from golf fans. It gives these people who are they're so careful to want to promote and protect their brands. It gives them another avenue to give a bit of the lighter side, the it's still more like how you're playing competitive golf with your friends than when you're having to try to play tournament golf. So you can be a bit looser. I just think it's great. And I think that's all I have to say about that.
No, I completely agree. And we also saw players that weren't necessarily the top 10 players in the world. We saw Kevin Na and a couple times.
But personality wise, they're great.
Yeah. 100%.
One, I think that for somebody like me, again, big Tiger homer, I thought was very nice was seeing Tiger and Charlie at the PNC and everybody at the PNC for that matter. But, it's nice to see Tiger as a person and a father and not just as the cutthroat, ruthless golfer, and maybe somebody who has done some things in his personal life that don't reflect super well on him. And but to see him just genuinely happy to be there with his son and his son enjoying himself and the obvious true connection they have, it just kind of humanizes someone who really is a larger than life figure or has been a larger than life figure for a lot of his life. I just thought that was nice.
Yeah. So, we brought this up for the bloody sock, I think, or I forget where else. Sorry, the swagger.
Swagger
and
Bloody
maybe
Sock.
alluded at that point that it should have been brought up for Bloody Sock. But to me, this is the part of that whole story that I liked. You know, I found the media coverage of this a little bit gag-inducing, but the actual Tiger out there playing with his son, I really enjoyed that. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of these things where, like, sometimes I find I cheer against Tiger because I'm just so nauseated by the coverage of Tiger. But, like, I actually, you know, somewhat enjoy it when he is playing well and everything involved. It's just, I find the coverage turns me off. And this was one of those things where, like, I actually love the fact that Tiger was out there playing with his son. It's just that, like, it was so... you know, like, just give them some room to breathe almost. Like, give them some room to be a father and son out there playing golf together.
But this one, you know, it's a chicken soup for the golf fans, so we'll just leave it at that. You loved seeing Tiger out there.
Well, and that's what I mean. And not just Tiger, but also, like, JT and his dad took this down.
Exactly.
And like, you know, talk about someone who's sacrificed for their son's career. He is as invested in his son and supports him so well. And I think also backs off when he feels like he needs to. But yeah, nice to see them take it down.
I think that's a pretty solid investment so far.
A quick honorable mention for me, Mia Villegas, Camilo and Maria's daughter, was unfortunately, unthinkably tragedy this July when they lost their 22-month-old daughter, Mia. Very, very heartbreaking story, but I think the response to that from the fraternity of golfers from the PGA was the heartwarming part of it. We saw the rainbow ribbon worn by most of the players for a while. Camille, for the rest of the season, Camille was playing great golf. We also saw at the Mayakoba Golf Classic, they had a rainbow bridge kind of in her honor with a nice plaque there. So really unthinkable tragedy, very sad story, but I think the response from the community that they have there, I think is a really heartwarming story to me.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing.
This is one that we talked about a little bit, and you know, with Adam and I being parents, it's you know,
and also parents of daughters that are either at that age or close to that age.
Yeah, we just, you know, it's an unthinkable thing to lose a daughter.
It's hard to put words around it.
And so, but, you know, Adam brings up that the point of how much there was support after that and how much people responded to that. It was heartwarming in that way, even though it was based around something that was so tragic and unthinkable. So it's worth mentioning for sure.
And then I think the other thing about it to me is, like, Camilo Villegas is playing the best golf he's played in years. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around the tragedy he's been through, but just the way that he has responded to it, and maybe it's just the only way he can cope with it is throwing himself at golf. But
absolutely.
I find it incredibly hard not to cheer for him every time I see him.
100%. Yeah. Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, great stories there, but I think there's one obvious, clear winner in the 2020 chicken soup for the golf fan soul, guys. The 2020 Grandie is going to Sophia Popov.
Yeah, absolutely.
It couldn't go to anyone else this year. Like, what a story! So, quick highlights. I think we talked about it on the pod. She won the Open Championship at Royal Troon. She was ranked 304th in the world going in. She barely qualified for the major after a top 10 quickly after the restart, just a couple weeks prior. During the COVID break, she was grinding away on the Cactus Tour in Arizona, where she won 3 tournaments. Just 3 weeks prior to her Open win at Royal Troon, she was a caddy for Anne Van Dam, like, on the LPGA. Like, this is the true grind of golf. Cinderella story, like, changed her life forever. Sophia Popov, clear winner of the 2020 Grandie.
And really, in everything I heard, you know, down the stretch of that tournament, the way she played and the way she handled herself, and then everything I heard afterwards with her in the interview she did, it was truly heartwarming, and it couldn't have happened to somebody who kind of has gone through the ringer more and deserved just that breakthrough chance. And it's like once she got it, she just grabbed hold of it and like was not going to let it go. And you know, it just gives me goosebumps even saying that. Like she totally deserved it, and you can't feel happier for somebody than
Well, I think the other thing that's cool about it is since that, you know, gave her status and entry into other things, it's not like she's been playing poor. Like she's shown that there's a reason she won that tournament.
She deserves to be there.
Yeah, which is always that tough thing. It's tough to know whether these type of people are going to be like, that's, I mean, likely that is the pinnacle, because that's a pretty high peak. But like some people, they just fall off the map. You never hear from them again. I think that she's the type of person that, like, it seems like she now belongs, and that's great to see.
Yeah. Okay, Craig, why don't you get us to the final and most prestigious Grandie of the night?
Yeah, so, you know, we've talked about a lot of things, but I think the one thing that always comes up in an awards show, especially sports, Player of the Year. We can look for who we want to name this after. Tommy Morris is taken. Otherwise, I think it'd be the clear choice. We could look at Vijay Singh. I think clearly the best player from the 2000s. But no, for now, maybe in the future becomes the Tiger Woods Player of the Year award. He might have deserved this a few seasons. But
well, let's just wait and see if we can maybe give it to him one more time before we name
I feel like that probably won't happen.
Don't hold your breath.
But yeah, no, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're not looking at the 1920 season. We're looking at 2020, the year that just happened. Who was the best player? Who is the most deserving? Adam, honorable mention.
Okay, I guess he was my monologue joke. I feel bad, but we only joke about people we like around here. We only do stock down on people we really care about. We care about all these golfers, but JT, you got to mention him. He's been talked about a lot on the Grandies this year. As an honorable mention, he won the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational. He's got runner-ups. He's got fourth at the Masters. I mean, he's just always there.
And there was a point this year he might have been the front runner for this.
He might have been the front runner. He touched world, number one in the world. He's still one of those players. Sorry, I also forgot Tournament Champions coming up really soon. He won that at the start of the 2020. So 2 wins. Just one of those guys. We talk about on DFS that he might spray a drive every now and then. That seems to be his only weakness. But there seems to be no real weakness. And when we get all these golfers at the very top of their game, there's not many people that are beating JT. I think JT is going to be in this category for a long, long time. I know he didn't win it this year, but I'm just saying he's going to be in this.
I think
he's been in the top 5 in the world since 2017.
So
I mean,
I totally agree. I think he's going to be in the top 5 in the world for a very long time to come. I just think at the top of their game, to me, I think JT is it's the consistency. I think that he is competitive every single week he tees it up. I still feel like, to me, DJ and Rory at the top of their game, I feel like...
No,
I'm searching the show notes for Rory, but I don't see where...
Yeah, was he an honorable mention here?
I don't think
Well,
so.
no, I'm just saying, if we're talking about people at their top of their game, who can be beat? Okay.
He was number 1
Kevin
this year. He was number 1.
Yeah, so I'll get to that in a sec. He's not in the show notes, but I'll make sure I get Rory in here somewhere. Kevin, but give us your honorable mention.
All right, well, my honorable mention is Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm also reached number 1 in the world twice this year. Only held the distinction for a week each time. But he finished last season very strong. He won the race to Dubai. Followed it up to start this season with a second at the Farmers early on at Torrey Pines. And he only had one finish outside the top 10 prior to the COVID break. He was playing phenomenal. After the break, he kind of came back, not in the best form. In fact, the only cut he missed all season was the first tournament back. Wasn't playing great, but then kind of out of nowhere, given his recent tournaments, he won Memorial. He popped at Memorial, won Memorial in pretty dramatic fashion there with the chipping and everything.
Yep.
And then in perhaps even more dramatic fashion, won the BMW championship with that 66-foot putt for the second win of the year. And, you know, at that point, it was really neck and neck with him and DJ as to who the number one in the world was. You know, he had just taken him down in a playoff, but DJ was playing unbelievable golf as well. He didn't really follow that up with the best play in the majors. Like, he wasn't a huge factor. I think that's really
the thing that held him back this year.
Yeah. He did finish in the top 10. He was a T7 at the Masters, but kind of
never
let
really
it get away. Yeah, he kind of let it get away from him there. I believe it was early Saturday when he was finishing up his second round. But you know, he did have a second place showing at the Zozo at the end of the year. Him and I think it was Cantley that took that down, and him and JT were just nipping at his heels the whole way. So, you know, he's always a factor, and he as well, I think, will remain as a perennial contender for this award. And really, you know, I don't see him. This season, I don't think was far from his mean. I think this was pretty well where
that's a good
he will be, and I think he can pop more than this. But I don't really see him falling much further than this. He's just so talented, and looks to have every aspect of the game. You know,
the big question that remains for him is he needs to pop at a major, and he needs to take down a major, because he is entering into his prime if he's not already there, and someone like him should be winning majors, and I think it'll come.
And
for
I think
him.
He will. He's still young. He's shockingly young. Like, what is he?
26,
he almost qualifies
maybe?
for the Tommy Morris Award still, isn't he?
He's close. I mean, Morris.
It's not going to be a clean sweep for Rom. Let's just say he's got his 2 Grandies. He's not going to sweep the categories this year.
Yeah. Fair enough. And rightfully so.
Last honorable mentions here. First off, I got to give a shout out to Rory. If it was not for COVID, I mean, first off, if you were to look back at the start of 2020, and
do you have this in your notes? I didn't.
So Rory was not in the notes, and he really is not because of how the season finished. Rory is not a legitimate contender here, I don't think. But I just need to point out, before the COVID break, he was on a string of 6 straight not top 10s, top 5 finishes. He was playing unbelievable golf. You know, it did not continue. He really had struggles after coming back from the COVID break. I think we are starting to see a return to form. You know, a few top 10s, and really hasn't fallen that far down in a while in terms of finishes. And I'm hoping we see a real return to Rory form in 2021. But from the way it started out, it's absurd that he is not a legitimate contender for this award this year. Bryson DeChambeau is, I think, a legitimate contender. You know, we had 3 majors this year. He took down one of those. He had another win as well. He had 11 of 19 finishes in the top 10, including 7 straight that spanned the COVID, you know, just before and just after the COVID break. Yeah. So just a ton of good golf, and in most years
his summer was unreal.
Would be quite competitive for this award, but there's really no questioning the fact that this year the Player of the Year, the Grandie, goes to Dustin Johnson.
Congratulations,
DJ!
Dustin.
Shocker of the year.
A well-deserving, taking home the most coveted Grandie of 2020.
It's the best picture of Grandies, really. Dustin Johnson, so Player of the Year for the 2019-2020 season, won the FedEx Cup. So, I mean, Dustin Johnson, you could arguably say, even without the Masters win, he might take this down. But then he goes out there. You know, he won Travelers. He won Northern Trust. He won, well, depending on how you want to count
don't forget the 2 or the 3 80s he shot in between.
So there was a few 80s at, the 3M Open?
3M
and Memorial, yeah. So, you know, there was peaks and valleys, but the peaks were higher than anyone. He came out, he won the FedEx Cup. I still say he may not have won the Tour Championship, but that's just me. I still think Sander deserves some love for the lowest score on those 72 holes.
But DJ does have the trophy.
But DJ has the trophy, and more importantly, the money.
Yeah.
And then, you know, very quiet, tied for 6th at the U.S. Open. Came out, almost won the Houston Open in his returning from COVID, very rusty. Carlos Ortiz should be happy maybe that DJ was not quite on full form, because he went right from there to Augusta, where he won the Masters, and as we say, just swaggered off the course, made plans with Paulina about how they were going to get the kids back to the place and everything, and I think.
And we'll see him next year in Augusta.
Walked off into the sunset as quite clearly the player of the year.
I mean, dominating second half of the year. So since August at the PGA, his worst finish was a 6th at the US Open. We're in December. Like, that is absurd.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so easy and has been so easy to forget about Dustin because of his nonchalance. And you almost just take him for granted that he's potentially the most talented player out there. And anytime he could pop and win, but you just are like, DJ won this week. I don't know. He played 5 shots better than anyone, and he won.
I think it's a little bit of product.
Sometimes you forget about him.
I think it's a little bit of a product of him being so good for so long, and like because of his ball striking and his length and his power game, he was very good and very competitive in big tournaments at a young age. But then once he started to polish up the entirety of his game, then we started to see him being as dominant as he can be. And then, we kind of just almost take it for granted, I think is the truth.
Yeah. I exactly think you're right with that. But, we won't anymore. He's got the Grandie on his mantle. And, that'll probably be his next headshot will be with the Grandie right beside him there. Again, TBD to what that will actually look like, but we'll see. Maybe for next year. Well, guys, I think this was just a wildly successful inaugural Grandies. Yes. Adam, do you have something you want to add there?
No, just yes. I think it was wildly successful. I mean, this was a product of 2020 and the crazy year that we had, and Grandstand is a new product, and this was probably my favorite show to do in the Grandies. I mean, let's keep it going.
I think if we were to give a Grandie to best award show of 2020, it would probably go to the Grandies.
World's best boss.
Well, guys, it was a lot of fun. I think the orchestra's been playing for probably about the last hour, so we should probably wrap her up. We thank everybody for listening. If you made it through to the end of this, we thank you for that, and we thank you for listening to anything we've put out this year. It's been a lot of fun for us to do. Please do subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Tell your friends. We're loving doing this, and we just want to share it with as many people as we can. And maybe eventually somebody will hear it that wants to.
Maybe TBD could be filled. On top of that, happy holidays, happy new year. Be safe, be smart. Looking forward to 2021.
Have fun.
That's right. All right. Take care, everyone. We look forward to talking golf with you in the future.
Yeah. See you guys. Take care.
See you guys.